Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1515 of the War News stream. And it seems like we are approaching 0 hour for the war in Iran to restart very, very soon. And we're currently seeing that U.S. forces are absolutely flooding into the Middle East as of this hour, as the Iran attack appears to be imminent. We've also seen that Ukraine struck today at least 3 major Russian oil refineries, and also another big one. The U.S. is preparing to seize all Iran oil tankers very soon, which could include Chinese tankers as well. And it's good to see you all once again.
And, of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news from around the world, as we have been able to hear of significant developments within the area of the Strait of Hormuz, and also throughout the entirety of Eastern Europe over the course of the day as well. And I've got to tell y'all, folks, my absolute enthusiasm for the Eastern European news is unbounding today. But, nevertheless, the situation inside the Middle East is continuing to be quite difficult, as we have been able to see that over the course of this day, the Islamic Republic of Iran has announced that the Strait of Hormuz is completely closed once again in its entirety, and has conducted what can only be described as a massacre against vessels that were attempting to transit the area, with 3 ships being hit within the course of just a few hours. 2 oil tankers and 1 container ship were hit. We were able to get the radio broadcast from the Indian tanker which was hit, which appears to have shown that the crew was in significant distress after the initial attacks. Iranian fast attack boats also targeted and conducted an attack on another oil tanker, while a container ship was apparently hit by 2 anti-ship drones or missiles somewhere within the area of the near vicinity of the other tanker, which was directly attacked by the fast attack boats of the Islamic Republic of Iran. The Iranian government has been putting out statements stating that they will deal a deadly blow to the United States of America in the next and upcoming conflict that is to follow, suggesting that at the moment right now, the Islamic Republic of Iran is assuming that their acts were of a wartime status, and that they are expecting that the war will begin here incredibly soon. The situation has become so concerning that the White House has convened a meeting within the situation situation room of the president's top cabinet members to be able to discuss the situation and where to go from here. The United States Navy has announced that they will be attempting to board and seize all Iranian tankers and any Iranian-affiliated tankers that are attempting to break the blockade in any form at this point, while we have gotten additional news that around 40% of Iran's weapon systems appear to be intact according to U.S. intelligence, which appears to be showing us a significant amount of their missile volume and missile firing capacity is still intact, at least at this moment right now, if the war resumes once more. We have also been able to see that some significant developments have also happened inside the Strait of Hormuz, with further radio broadcasts being issued just recently by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps within the area, and Apache gunships being seen somewhere near to the southern side of the Strait of Hormuz, near to the northern coast of Oman and the UAE. Outside of this situation in the Strait of Hormuz, in the larger area of the Middle East, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea has fired off a ballistic missile test into the Sea of Japan just about an hour before the stream went live. We've also heard reports that there are significant U.S. airlifts currently ongoing into the Middle East, as it appears that U.S. forces are continuing to flood munitions and personnel into the region for future military actions that are most likely imminent at this moment. The Russian Federation has also found itself in quite a significant problem today, and not due to the Ukrainian attacks happening day over day inside their country, which is continuing to mount significant damage on critical infrastructure of the Russian Federation. According to the top Russian economic development and research minister, he has stated today, in official words of the Russian Federation's government, that the Russian Federation as a nation, as an economy, as a system, has run out of reserve funds, meaning that at this moment, the Russian Federation is largely bankrupt already, and the war in Ukraine will most likely not be able to continue for any longer than most likely the remainder of this year, before the Russian Federation quite literally runs out of money to be able to conduct the war to any degree, to any capacity.
Man, insult to injury there. They're losing the war inside of Ukraine, and on top of that, they're broke now. As that one senator once said, we don't have your money, we're broke.
Man, words that have never been truer. We've also been able to hear that Nick Matulin, one of the top Russian economic experts, has actually stated today that the economic situation is so bad that he demands that the Russian government, including that of Vladimir Putin, be found accountable for this calamity and be overthrown from power inside of the Russian Federation, showing that economic experts are willing to be thrown out of windows at this point because of how bad the economic situation has transpired inside the Russian Federation due to the continued developments against Russia's favor throughout the entirety of the conflict. The Russian economic situation will certainly not be improving or remaining stagnant either, as significant Ukrainian drone attacks today were able to hit the cities of Taganrog, Rostov-on-Don, Yeysk, Sevastopol, the city of Syzran, and also Novokuvishevsk just south of Samara, hitting a significant amount of oil refineries throughout the area, and also hitting significant Russian armed forces facilities inside of Sevastopol, Taganrog, and Rostov-on-Don. We've also heard further developments inside of Belarus that Lukashenko stated that he's not the West's son of a bitch. I don't know why he said that, but he just made that announcement today. It was a big deal for some reason. We also were able to hear that the Ukrainian armed forces were able to inflict significant amounts of damage onto the Russian Federation's armed forces, causing high losses over the day and stopping any further Russian advances inside of the state of Ukraine. Once again, showing that the battlefield is at a stalemate, and if anything, it is actually in Ukraine's favor at this point in the battle. But we have a humongous amount of news to cover, not just within the Middle East and Eastern Europe, but around the entirety of the world, and we are going to be making sure to get into all of this news, starting with the largest stories first, and then moving our way on down into the smaller stories throughout the night. And today, folks, I have to tell y'all, we are not short of any news whatsoever. As a matter of fact, we're so full of news, we got breaking news coming out right now. So Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so obviously right now the main focus is the war is about to restart in the Middle East. We're about to see either Iran or the United States is about to kick this thing back off in probably the next 72 hours. So we're currently watching that, but we're currently seeing literally right this second that it looks like Russia is once again under a pretty large-scale attack. We're currently monitoring what appears to be a rocket attack or a missile attack in Taganrog, Russia that we're seeing right now. So this is something that's ongoing as we speak, so we don't have a whole bunch of details about it, but it appears to be a pretty large ongoing Ukrainian attack on the Russians that we're seeing right now. So we'll keep that one on the back burner. If something major happens with it, we'll break again to cover it, but we'll continue with the Iran news for now. But just to report on that ongoing situation.
And we will be making sure to speak of this just a little bit later. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take this here for a moment, and we'll cover this in our Ukraine war news segment, as we were able to get actual proof now in picture and video evidence of attacks that we already had in the news segment for later. So let me make sure to put that down right there and put that on our map so that way we can get to that once we get to that part of the news later on in the stream, because as many of you all know, our first piece of news for the night is going to be down in the Middle East. So moving us on into our first and largest story of the night, we are of course going to be returning to the Strait of Hormuz, which has been one of the highlighted topics of the stream for one of the longest periods in stream history. It's probably been one of the headliners for about 6 weeks now, as far as a singular geographical area. Moving us into the significant developments that have happened over the course of the day, we were able to announce that earlier this morning, for some reason, and we do not know why, some large number of tankers and container ships within the Strait of Hormuz had apparently once again gotten the message that the Strait of Hormuz had been reopened. As many of y'all will know, last night when we were covering the news, a large amount of tankers and container ships of Western aligned countries had heard by the President of the United States and the Foreign Minister of Iran, Abbas Araghchi, that the Strait of Hormuz had been reopened, and there was a general rush of ships that were heading towards the Strait. Afterwards, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps threatened to fire upon all of them, and basically all of them turned around. For some reason, after we went off air about 2 hours later last night, apparently a large amount of ships started to think that the route was open again, and we saw that another attempted bull run was conducted onto the strait, this one right here. And we can actually see that some of the vessels started to pass on through. We believe that these were apparently a part of the toll route. We're about to see those here in a second right here. But the rest of them were in fact slowing down or completely turning around at this point. We then were able to hear that not long later, it appears that the vessels had in fact largely started to turn around completely again after the second bull run was attempted, which the Iranians once again reiterated to the entirety of this bull run over VFR that the strait was closed, and unless if they had paid a toll to the Iranians and had been approved to pass through, those vessels would be fired upon. In the midst of this all, while we've been watching that development ongoing, one ship decided to try and pull a little bit of a fast one. An Indian motor vessel, which we'll be naming here in a moment, actually turned around after getting the VFR radio message from the Islamic Republic of Iran's IRGC, and decided to pull something that many armchair analysts have stated would easily be done and would avoid a direct attack by the Iranians. The Indians turned their ship around, shut off their transponder, and then simply turned back into the Strait of Hormuz and attempted to sail through it, with their transponder off the entire time. According to some people out there in the world, they have stated that if you simply turn the transponder off on your ship, the several hundred foot long ship that has a giant signature on surface search radar, then the Iranians clearly wouldn't be able to see the ship to be able to shoot it, so for that reason, you'll be able to pass through safely. Meaning that the Strait of Hormuz has never really been closed, it's just a matter of turning off the transponder, sailing on through, and then turning it on the other side. Unfortunately, that's not how real life works. The Islamic Republic of Iran did pick up the ship attempting to violate the area, according to the information that we have, and then struck the vessel several times with some form of ordnance. We're not entirely sure if it was anti-ship missiles or air-launched or sea-launched drones that then rammed into the ship and exploded onto it, but it does appear that the Iranians did detect the vessel trying to break the blockade and fired upon the vessel. We also were able to hear that not only with this tanker did we hear of its attack, we also heard of 2 other additional attacks as well from the UK MTO. And here is the information in general for these other 2 attacks. A container ship was hit 25 nautical miles northeast of Oman in the dead center of the Strait of Hormuz, largely within an Iranian toll booth, and we understand that there was some damage caused to the containers, and that there was apparently no fire on board. The authorities were investigating, and the vessels were advised to then report suspicious activity to the UK MTO. A second tanker, second to the Indian one, which we just covered a second ago, which we're about to get into its radio transmission of, was also hit as well, 20 nautical miles northeast of Oman. The master of the tanker reported being approached by 2 IRGC gunboats with no VHF challenge, and they then fired upon the tanker directly from the fast attack boats. The tanker and the crew are reported safe, but we believe at this point the tanker then turned around, believing that it was under the threat of being additionally fired upon by other Iranian forces and then made its way back into the area of the Persian Gulf. This means that as of right now, 3 vessels have been attacked and hit in some form by direct Iranian fire, either anti-ship drones, anti-ship missiles, or direct line-of-sight attacks by Iranian fast attack boats within the Strait of Hormuz. We also were able to hear that Indian vessel that we spoke of earlier actually making a message directly to the IRGC begging for them not to continue firing on their vessel, and they would just simply turn around and leave the area. We actually did see that they did turn around and leave the area, and the Iranians apparently let them after they hit them apparently twice. But I'll let y'all hear this radio transmission here from the helmsman, or the captain on board the Sanmar Herald, which was the vessel that was directly hit several times by the Iranians, as it does appear that they sound quite distressed by the developments.
Sepa Navy, this is Motor Angus Sanmar Herald. You gave me clearance to go. My name second on your list. You gave me clearance to go. You are fighting now. Let me turn back.
That was the message from...
Well, how do you know he was second on the list? How would he know that, since he's not the one who's, like, letting people through the strait?
Apparently, they must be broadcasting the list to these vessels and saying, this vessel is currently ready to go. You're the second vessel on the list, so once that one makes it through, then you're allowed to go through behind it in the same route. I guess that's how he was able to say he was second on the list.
Yeah, that's a sort of a strange thing. That guy actually sounded extremely panicked, obviously. Obviously, his ship was under fire, so that's why he's freaking out. But do we know if he actually got permission or not, or was he just saying that to try to save their skin, basically, at that point, because they got caught?
I wouldn't really be able to tell you. Like, that side of the story has been a little bit unclear, but this is actually the vessel that did turn off its transponder and then tried to go through the strait, and then after it got hit a couple of times, it then turned its transponder back on, and then immediately turned around and went full speed back out of the strait towards to the Persian Gulf.
Interesting. Well, whatever the case is, it sounds to me like the IRGC still has a bunch of fast attack boats that are at their ready, because that's what reportedly went after this ship. It was a whole bunch of small vessels that Iran sent out from the coast to go hunt down this ship and start firing at it. And that's what the guy was screaming about on the radio, is that they had the ships firing machine guns at them. So it turns out they still have their ships, contrary to reports.
They still certainly do have a far larger number of fast attack boats than a lot of people believed. The surface fleet, or at least the conventional surface vessels that were larger than a minesweeper, were mostly destroyed in U.S. airstrikes, but the primary actions that the Iranians would use, which would be coastal patrol vessels like these fast attack boats, were hardly damaged or really hit by U.S. strikes, considering that they were so small. The U.S. military, at least in its war planning at the higher levels, way up at the top, apparently didn't decide that those vessels were important enough to be hit and destroyed. And we do understand that they still have a significant amount of these fast attack boats, aka the speedboats armed with dishkas and rocket launchers, to be able to try and influence direct control over the Strait of Hormuz in the littoral sense. Given the small area of the Strait of Hormuz and the fact that it's only about 30 miles across, these small fast attack boats can actually thrive in this sort of an environment, especially against unarmed commercial shipping like the Sanmar Herald, which did come under fire today from some form of Iranian forces, along with other vessels that also came under attack within the area as well. This means that the Iranians are still exerting direct control over the entirety of the strait, given the fact that the international waters, or the international water corridor down the middle, is currently mined at the moment, and we also understand that the Iranian territorial waters are also being patrolled heavily by these fast attack boats, meaning that at the moment right now, the Iranians have once again effectively completely shut down the strait and will be able to continue this action until they are challenged militarily by the United States of America, as there really is no other way to be able to try and break the situation as we're seeing it right now. A lot of people are currently talking about this development and the fact that the Iranians did attack 2 tankers and a container ship today inside of the Hormuz, and as we were able to hear over radio broadcast, the Indian vessel, the Sanmar Herald, was begging for the Iranians to stop firing upon their ship so that way they could turn around and leave the area without the loss of the ship or the loss of the crew. And a lot of people are currently talking about this development at the moment right now. And Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
Okay, so there's been a lot of speculation as of today about whether or not the Iranian government is actually in control of what's happening right now in the Strait of Hormuz, because we've been hearing rumors in the street, that is, that apparently the Iranian government is trying to pursue diplomacy, at least somewhat. They're trying to at least be perceived like they're pursuing diplomacy, but the IRGC is raring to go to get the war started yet again. So there's been all kinds of speculation that maybe there's like a soft coup underway, maybe there's some type of disagreement between the government and the military military. But the truth is, we don't know what the situation is, and it's pure speculation right now. But what do you think, though? Now that we're seeing today an absolute ship massacre in the Strait of Hormuz, and they've essentially completely closed it again, and now not only closed it, but started firing on ships again, which is obviously about as bad as it gets. So what are your thoughts? 51% said Iran's government cannot control the IRGC, and essentially, the military's in charge. 38% said Iran's government wanted this to happen today, and 5% said I'm 50-50 on this one. And I would say, I think Iran's government is kind of a little bit in between on this right now, because we're seeing that they were trying to negotiate with the United States, but at the same time, though, I mean, they were talking, but they really weren't being realistic, because they were demanding to keep their uranium, making all these unrealistic demands. So the talks weren't going to go anywhere, but I think the IRGC is making it worse, because they're wanting to fight and they're wanting to hurt people. They've been wanting to do that for a long time, and they're wanting to get right back to it. So there's obviously a little bit of a conflict of interest between the two. And also, there's a new leader inside of Iran, Mojtaba Khomeini, the son of the Ayatollah. He is not a proven leader, and there could be some internal rifts forming where maybe they're not too confident in his leadership, and maybe he's being perceived as maybe weak, and they could be trying to test that between the military and the government. So I'm actually with the 6%. I'm kind of in the middle. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would actually have to say that I'm with the 38%. I believe that the Iranian government wanted this to happen because they have no reason to back off of their blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, at least for right now. The U.S. blockade at the mouth of the Gulf of Oman has not proven to be economically devastating enough, at least at this moment, for the Iranians to be pressured into reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Meaning that right now, the Iranians are still most likely viewing this internally as a war of attrition, where they're hoping to economically grind down the West to a point that the West gives up and walks away from the conflict and largely gives Iran mostly what they want before that happens to the Iranians in turn. And for that reason, they really have no purpose right now in relinquishing their control of the Strait of Hormuz. And we also understand in the last talks they had with the United States as their official negotiating teams that met the U.S. envoy in Islamabad, they stated that they weren't even willing to negotiate or discuss the Strait of Hormuz because they clearly controlled the entirety of the strait, and that's not even up into questionability anymore. That's just a given fact, according to them. So they clearly are not going to be reopening the strait anytime soon. They didn't have any intention of reopening the strait anytime soon. And not only that, the Iranians have still been playing hardball in every single attempt that we have made to try and talk to them from the U.S. negotiating position. With those things in mind, it would be quite obvious that the next step in playing hardball would be once again to show that they control the Strait of Hormuz absolutely, and that they will continue the significant economic pressure due to the oil shortage to see that they eventually have their demands met by the United States and our allies, or else we will face some sort of economic damage or suffering as a result of not meeting their demands. So I'd actually believe that this is well and truly within the intentions and the wishes of the Iranian government, because they really have no reason, and have not had a reason yet at this point, to really relinquish their control of the Strait of Hormuz, which gives them significant leverage in hand against their most sworn enemy as a nation, the United States of America. So that's generally what I would believe, at least at the moment. But we also have additional information that did come out today as well, showing us the Iranian position in that regard, and what the official government statements and the Iranian military statements have been, which both of those statements have been lock in step with each other throughout the day. Inside of the area of the Strait of Hormuz, the Iranians started off the day by announcing the following. From the spokesperson of the central headquarters of the Hatam al-Anbiya, the control of the Strait of Hormuz has returned to its previous state. The Islamic Republic of Iran, following previous agreements and negotiations, has in good faith agreed to the managed passage of a limited number of oil tankers and commercial ships through the Strait of Hormuz. However, unfortunately, the Americans, with repeated breaches of their commitment as in their history, continue piracy and maritime robbery under the so-called blockade. For this reason, control of the Strait of Hormuz has returned to its previous state, and this strategic strait is under the strict management and control of the armed forces. As long as the United States does not end the complete freedom of passage for vessels to and from Iran, the situation in the Strait of Hormuz will remain heavily controlled and in its previous state. The Iranians then also added on the additional message as well, as the Iranians did broadcast over VHF message, attention to all ships, regarding the failure of the U.S. government to fulfill its commitment in the negotiation, Iran declares the Strait of Hormuz completely closed again. No vessel of any type or nationality is allowed to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. We then also got to hear that the Hormuz was once again completely closed, and the VHF message was apparently being broadcasted time and time again. Finally, we were able to hear one of the VHF messages issued by the Iranians, which there is a community note below stating that it's unverified, but generally we're going to let y'all hear it, as if it is eventually verified, this appears to be some sort of a statement that may have been issued by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps today inside of the Strait of Hormuz. And here is the audio.
In Persian Gulf and Oman Sea, this is Iranian Sepa Navy calling you on channel 16. The Strait of Hormuz is still closed. We will open it by the order of our leader Imam Khamenei, not by the tweets of some idiot. If you want to pass through the strait, you must ask permission from Iranian Sepa Navy. All vessels that have a connection with our enemies will be targeted if they try to pass the Strait of Hormuz out.
Generally, it lines up with the VHF messages in their text transcribed version, at least to a great deal, which gives us a little bit of an idea that this might be a credible audio message that was recorded within the area today, but we'll be waiting to see if it ends up being accurate or not. But it does appear that, according to them, tweets don't open the strait, at least by the audio claim. It's apparently some sort of an agreement, which is a shocker to me. I thought tweets opened things up. But apparently it's some sort of agreement we have to make with them, or we just have to obliterate the Iranian Navy and their minefield and eventually open up the strait that way, which I feel like is probably going to be the easiest thing to do out of the two.
Did that guy on the radio just call our president some idiot?
Yeah, he said, unlike some tweets from some idiot, is what he said, basically word for word.
Interesting. And also, if that was a real recording right there, if that was actually legit, which we're waiting on verification, by the way, just made that perfectly clear. He sounded like he had a hard time even like recognizing who his leader was. He was like, Many. It's like, is he not really sure like who's in charge or something? Why was he like pausing before he said that?
He might not know who's in charge. You know, he might just know who's in charge of him above his chain of command, but he might not actually know who's up at the very top. But generally, right now, the Iranian government is still going with the claim that it is Imam Khamenei, who is the son of the former Khamenei, who was then the successor to Khomeini, which is totally different than the Khamenei guy, which is spelled with an A instead of an O. Totally side point. But anyways, getting us up into the Iranian central government statements in Tehran today, we also were able to hear some additional statements, which is giving us an idea that the IRGC largely is operating lock and step with current government statements, at least for right now. As the Iranian Supreme Leader, Mujtaba Khamenei, stated in a statement today posted on a Telegram channel that Iran's Navy is ready to inflict new bitter defeats on enemies, which sounds like wartime footing and a return back to the conflict that we saw that was only brought to a limited end or a limited ceasing by the ceasefire which we're currently in right now. The Iranians also stated, according to the Fars news agency, that Iran to respond with full force if we return to war. Once again showing that, at least for Iranian state media, they're starting to get the nation back onto a war footing. And finally, we were able to hear that according to the claims by the Kobisi letter, Iran has not agreed to another round of talks with the United States, citing U.S. pressure tactics, which include the President of the United States' blockade of the Strait of Hormuz and what it calls unreasonable demands, per Tasnim news agency. This is all giving us an idea that the Iranians will not be negotiating with the United States of America, and this is also the larger reason why I believe that the actions of the IRGC within the Strait today are well in line with the central government's ambitions inside of Tehran, as it appears that the statements and actions of the Iranian government are aligning on all ends, at least from what we can see publicly right now, which would give me a clear idea that this is a larger Iranian governmental tactic to be able to try and maximize the pressure against the United States to meet Iran's demands, or else the Iranians are going to inflict punishment on us. A lot of people are hearing about that development and have been also hearing that right now, just recently, before we went live on air, the United States of America's Office of the President has convened a Situation Room meeting, according to what we were able to hear and corroborate according to the news source Axios. Apparently, this Situation Room meeting was over the Strait of Hormuz. In attendance in this meeting were the following individuals of the President's cabinet and also those of the executive branch: the Vice President, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, the Treasury Secretary, because, you know, that's always an important one, the Special Envoy, that's always an important one, the CIA Director, which is actually important, and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So we are largely seeing that, at least with the current cabinet meeting that was had in the Situation Room, there were some significantly important individuals within the U.S. government that were involved in this meeting and the discussion of possibly where to go from here. We also were able to hear, at least according to the Kobisi letter once again, what some of the details might have been from the Situation Room meeting. And I want to make this clear, might have been the details spoken about within the Situation Room meeting. The president has convened the White House Situation Room meeting to discuss Iran's closure of the Strait of Hormuz as the ceasefire is set to expire in 3 days. The details allegedly included: 1. The situation with Iran is at a critical point and no final date has been set for a new meeting between the U.S. and Iran, as we do know that the Iranians are not willing to speak to the United States. 2. U.S. officials say that if there is no breakthrough soon, the war could resume in the coming days, giving us an idea that armed conflict will most likely be resuming within the region. 3. The renewed crisis in the Strait of Hormuz arose amid discussion regarding Iran's uranium enrichment. And 4. Trump says he will know by the end of the day if a deal is going to happen. The president also concluded by saying Iran can't blackmail us. We'll hopefully see that they can. But outside of that, that appears to be what the Situation Room meeting is, at least at the moment. And it does appear that this is causing some very serious tremors, at least at the moment, within the U.S. government, as we're trying to figure out what to do now that the Iranians have completely blockaded their end of the Strait of Hormuz once more, and are continuing to try and conduct maximum pressure against us and our allies to see that we meet Iranian demands in this conflict, and see that the conflict concludes in an Iranian victory. A lot of people currently aren't talking about this right now, and the fact that the ceasefire is set to end in only a mere matter of about 72 hours from now. And a lot of people are wondering whether the attacks are going to be kicking off again. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that right now, and what are you thinking about that as well?
All right, so now that we're seeing that the talks between the Iranian officials and the U.S. officials are pretty much over with at this point, I think most people are in agreement that the talks are pretty much a dead end at this point. Iran is saying they're going to keep their uranium. They're obviously closing the Strait of Hormuz, and that's the main 2 points that have to be agreed to before the ceasefire can be extended. And now we're seeing, like we just saw, a Situation Room meeting with the top military officials in the country here in the United States. So the ceasefire is about to end in just mere days. So what do you think is going to kick off the attacks again? Because at this point, I think it's fair to say that war is almost certain. 58% said the U.S. will launch early strikes, and that will be what kicks it off, while 23% said Iran will likely strike Israel and the Gulf states, and then the U.S. will simply respond to that, and 9% said Iran will attack U.S. forces first. So there was a statement earlier today by U.S. officials, and they said that they would generally know by the end of the day today whether or not Iran was going to come to a deal or not. And I would assume that since we're now seeing attacks on vessels in the Strait, and we're seeing all kinds of other bad actions by Iran, I would say that they've probably determined that war is imminent. So I would not be surprised to see preemptive U.S. strikes on Iran. I would not be surprised to see that because the element of surprise is something they want to take advantage of. And I think that is something they're probably going to take advantage of. So I'm with the 58%. We'll probably see that first. It'll probably be the U.S. Making a first strike on their own accord. But Enforcer, what say you?
I have a feeling that the United States would launch preemptive strikes at this moment, as there is no way to create any sort of an amicable diplomatic solution that will end the conflict at this point right now. The Iranians are not willing to negotiate with the United States in good faith, and that largely ends any sort of further extrapolation or analysis right there. If the Iranians aren't willing to talk to us, which they aren't at this point, we can't really say, well, if we talk to them, we could do this and that to try and end the thing. We can't even speak to them right now because they're not willing to speak to us. So that clearly forces our hand back into conducting military actions, which, surprise, surprise, folks, we've been saying here on this channel that we should be doing that the entire time. It makes the most sense. The Islamic Republic of Iran is a terrorist regime. It has executed 40,000 of its own citizens in massacres in the early part of January. It has continuously funded and supported terrorist forces throughout the entirety of the region, and while defending them with their lives, they have simultaneously claimed that these terrorist forces are not affiliated with them in any capacity when it conveniences them. Once again showing that they try and use legal warfare to try and further support and grow their terrorist activities inside of the region. They are trying to develop a nuclear weapon to target and kill millions of Americans within the United States of America, moving their problem from the U.S. government to the common citizenry of this republic, including you and me watching right now. And not only that, they are trying to develop an intercontinental ballistic missile to be able to reach the United States with, to where that missile and that nuclear warhead would be able to impact largely any city within the United States of America. These reasons and those reasons alone are the reason why we should not be willing to negotiate with the Islamic Republic of Iran and its current regime. They have clearly shown that they do not have the best interest of the United States of America at heart. They're radical and ideologically driven, and for that reason, we should continue the war until such time that we see a successful conclusion for the United States of America. Otherwise, we will see that they will eventually be able to achieve one of their aims, which will be to the detriment of this republic in some shape or form, depending on the specific scenario. With that in mind, I would say that we need to conduct military action at a minimum at this point right now to see that the Strait of Hormuz is reopened and that the freedom of navigation resumes. There is no way that we can allow the Iranians to continue to unilaterally control the Strait of Hormuz as their own toll booth and as their own highway for ships that they support, but not our own ships. That would cause untold economic damage throughout the future, and that would weaken our sphere of influence within the Middle East to the point of non-existence, as everyone would have to start aligning themselves with the Iranians and the Chinese, just so that way their ships could pass through the strait and that their nations could continue to make money and prosper. That is a situation that we cannot accept, considering the current fuel situation, or largely the fuel overlook globally for the next 20 years, and the strategic pertinence of maintaining control of the Middle East over that period of time. Additionally, I believe that we should see that our original war goals continue to be pursued after we break the Iranian blockade on the Hormuz, and that we eventually see that the Iranian regime is either completely destroyed or their ability to attempt to produce nuclear weaponry, ICBMs, or to continue to fund terrorist forces throughout the region which undermine U.S. interests is eventually whittled away or completely removed. There is no other way that this can go. And while a lot of people are saying that there shouldn't be a war with the Islamic Republic of Iran, I hate to tell you this, but we don't live in your world, we live in the world's world, and there's a war going on right now. And we have to find a way to be able to walk away from this thing without completely screwing you and myself over. And this is the only option that we have right now that would be able to see that at some degree, we might be able to come out of this with some form of a victory. Otherwise, we are going to walk away, since this war has been started and is ongoing, with an absolute blistering defeat for the United States and significant global repercussions and foreign policy repercussions that will continue to reverberate for decades to the detriment of our citizenry. So I hope that does address it the best I can, at least in my opinion, as I believe that our only option is to conduct preemptive strikes and to put maximum pressure on the Iranians and to break their blockade and to show that regardless of how many forces and how many boats the Iranians are able to put into the Hormuz, and no matter the mines that are able to permeate its waters, the armed forces of this republic and the steel that forms the hulls of the ships of our Navy will be able to pierce through that blockade and ensure that the freedom of navigation is resumed for us and our allies the world over. But moving us on from that, we do have more news to speak of within the area of the Strait of Hormuz, and we now have to talk about the American side of this situation that we have seen down here. According to the President of the United States earlier this morning, after word emerged that the Strait of Hormuz had been closed again by the Iranians, the President then stated, "They got a little cute." I haven't really stated that anyone in the Iranian government is cute, but apparently to the president, they got a little hot piece of it, as they've been doing for 47 years. We're talking to them. They wanted to close up the strait again. You know, they've been doing that for years, and they can't blackmail us. Moving us on from that statement, we also heard that apparently a U.S. defense official claimed that the IRGC had conducted at least 3 attacks on commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz since Saturday morning, which we were able to corroborate with our own open source intelligence, which is the largest number of attacks that has been conducted on commercial ships since the very beginning of the war. The United States of America also appears to be preparing for a major escalation, engaging U.S. Troops directly with ships with Iran's oil for the first time. This statement was made today after the United States Navy has now announced at its blockade near to the entrance of the Gulf of Oman that the U.S. military is preparing to board Iranian-linked tankers and seize sanctioned vessels inside of international waters. We also heard that at some point just recently, several AH-64 Apaches of an unknown variant of the Apache class of helicopters were spotted flying over the Strait of Hormuz. We do not know exactly where they were, but it is at least supposed at the moment that they were somewhere near to the southern end of the Strait of Hormuz, outside of air defense fire that could be levied by the Islamic Republic of Iran's coastal defense forces. That is showing that there was some limited U.S. military presence near to the strait today, but it does not appear to be a significant one that was directly challenging or breaking the blockade, at least at this moment development, but maybe showing that there is future U.S. intentions aimed at breaking the blockade and forcing our way on through. A lot of people are talking about that blockade announcement, however, which is probably one of the larger announcements of this entire development on the U.S. side over the day, as the U.S. is now announcing that they will not be taking a passive role in their blockade and telling ships to turn around. They will be actively hunting them down near to the blockade zone and boarding them and seizing the vessels if they are affiliated with the Islamic Republic of Iran. That might also be the case, or this might also mean that the United States will chase down, board, and seize Chinese tankers, considering that a significant amount of them are on sanctions list for loading up with Iranian oil in prior years and then being added onto those sanctions list by the U.S. government. And a lot of people are currently talking about that right now. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so this is the big one. This is the big point of contention that could lead to very, very tricky situations if we get too careless with what ships we're starting to seize. And right now, we're hearing that allegedly the U.S. is planning to board Iran-linked tankers and seize them. So the question is, Iran-linked, what is that defined as? Will that include China's ships? Because, of course, if some of these sanctioned Chinese vessels are getting Iranian oil, technically, you could argue that they're Iranian linked. So what are your thoughts? 46% said no, the U.S. will only take Iran ships and they'll avoid the Chinese vessels, while 30% said yes, the U.S. will seize China's ships as well, and 16% said I think this is a huge bluff and the U.S. probably won't do any of this. So I would say on this one, I think they might be bluffing, because imagine this. Imagine the U.S. goes in to seize a Chinese ship, and then the Chinese calls up and says, hey, wait a minute, did you just seize one of our ships? And the U.S. says, oh, well, yeah, we did. It was under sanctions. What are the Chinese going to do at that point? That's an act of war, seizing a Chinese ship. Even if it is under sanctions, we have to be ready to back that up and defend ourselves if China decides to act out a threat. So so far, China has made clear that they are not going to tolerate that. So if the U.S. follows through with it, there's no reason to believe that China's bluffing. I think they will follow through with something. So I think they could be bluffing on that part. I think they'll probably try to see some Iranian ships that are only Iranian-based, and that could be it. So I'm with the 45%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I'm with the 45%. They would probably only take Iranian ships. Boarding and seizing Chinese vessels is going to cause largely almost a wartime situation with the Chinese, probably within the days leading after that situation happened. So I would say that we're probably only going to be seizing Iranian ships. Here's my honest take, though, folks. If we're not going to stop the Chinese ships because of the risk involved in doing that and the repercussions that may come to follow, why in the world even conduct a blockade at all? Why don't we just end our own blockade? Point. Yeah, why don't we just end our own blockade and say, you know what? A mistake was made there. The blockade was ridiculous. We respect the freedom of navigation. That's why these warships are about to be used against the little speedboats the Iranians have in the Strait, and we're going to clear that thing out and start opening up the waters for all shipping through the area. And if the Iranians pop their head up on the coastline, they're going to get it cut off by the U.S. Armed Forces. And that's what I would say at this point, because why in the world are we going to try and conduct a blockade that either is going to escalate this conflict into a world war, because we're going to have to try and seize a Chinese ship, or we're going to have to let the Chinese ships through, which means that the blockade only exists on paper, and it isn't actually a blockade, because it's not stopping the most important country in this whole scenario, which is the Chinese, from going in and getting their oil and leaving.
Yeah. And also remember that yesterday there was a statement that came out of the White House on Truth Social, I think it was. It was the president, of course. And he was saying something like Xi Jinping was going to be very happy that the Strait of Hormuz was being reopened by the United States. And he had mentioned something about their meeting that's coming up. That meeting that he's looking forward to so much, it's like that's not going to go well if you start, trying to seize Chinese vessels. Not that we really care about the meeting, because to be perfectly honest, if they show up and talk with Xi Jinping, it's not like we're going to have good relations with China all of a sudden. China's funding proxy wars. Like, for example, in Ukraine, they're funding one. They're now funding one and supplying weapons to Iran. So, meeting with Xi Jinping is basically meeting with the enemy, essentially. There's nothing that's going to come out of that. But nonetheless, though, the U.S. president thinks something is going to come out of it. And I'm like, would he really start seizing their vessels in the midst of trying to have a meeting? It's like that wouldn't really make much sense.
Also, on top of that, it's like, what has come out of his prior meetings with dictators? Nothing. The president has met with Putin in Anchorage. Nothing came out of that. The war is still going on in Ukraine. As a matter of fact, the situation is worse now than when the meeting happened back then in the summer. We met with Kim Jong-un. That didn't really warm up the North Koreans to the West at all. If anything, they became even more threatening after that meeting, if y'all don't know. So that didn't really do anything to fix the situation. So out of those two instances so far with Russia and North Korea, and the situation after the meetings became worse rather than better as far as our foreign policy outlook with them, why in the world would we even be worried about meeting with Xi Jinping? Xi Jinping leads the economically and militarily most dangerous country in the world right now to the Western sphere. If we meet with him, it's going to be a cool little thing for the cameras, and maybe some neat tweets would be made about I talked to him and no one else did, and I'm cool and they're not. But outside of that, what's it going to do to benefit the United States of America? We are trying, or at least we should be trying as the United States, to wean U.S. manufacturers out of the Chinese industrial base and move them to other countries that are more American aligned, either here in this continent or somewhere else around the world. We're not trying to grow our relationships with the Chinese, and there's no way at any point in the future that we would be able to rekindle some sort of atmosphere of friendship with the communist Chinese to where they do not end up being a major strategic threat. As long as Xi Jinping is in charge, or some sort of a hardliner like him, we are going to always be at odds with the People's Republic of China. So there's no reason to grow relations with them. If anything, we should be trying to run static right now while we get all of our manufacturers out of China and offshore them in some other country somewhere in the next few years. So I don't even know what the huge emphasis is for this meeting, because it's not like it's going to change anything, and it's really just done for the optics and the photos from the meeting.
Yeah, I would agree. So I'm not sure if that big fat hug is going to be happening, especially if they seize the vessels, the Chinese ships in the Strait. I really doubt that big fat hug's ever going to be happening right there. So Pooh Bear could be very, very sad. I just don't think the U.S. is going to do that. Like, to get back to the main poll question, I don't think the U.S. is going to take it there, because basically seizing a Chinese vessel, that's voluntarily saying, let's go ahead and kick off World War III right now. Let's just get this thing started. It's like, we don't want to do that right now, like for multiple different reasons. We need to restock. Number one, we've depleted a lot of munitions, precision munitions in the Middle East right now, and we don't want to start a war with the biggest superpower in the world next to the United States while we're pretty much needing to restock. I mean, we don't want to do that. And also, we don't want to do it when China or Russia is about to invade the Baltics. We don't want to do that either. So it's a very inconvenient time, and to take it there to start seizing the Chinese ships, that's an act of war at that point. So I think it's a bluff. I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen either, and that also then brings it back around, like we were saying at the start, why even do a blockade then? Why not just try and open the Strait and conduct the most direct action? If there is a problem, folks, that is a direct issue, then there usually is a way to directly deal with that problem and resolve it. If the Iranians have closed the Strait of Hormuz with military force, then we need to destroy the military forces they are using in that blockade, and that would reopen the Strait. If they don't have a missile, a drone, or soldiers alive to fire those missiles or drones within that general area, then they're not able to blockade the Strait anymore. The Strait's open. And once we're able to secure that sort of a situation where they're not able to fire humongous amounts of ordnance at our forces, we can then send in minesweepers to clear out the mines, and then the entirety of the waters are reopened. All we have to do at that point is conduct convoy escorts until we're well and truly certain that the Iranians don't pose a threat. And if the Iranians ever pop up their heads on that coastline or deeper in the country trying to fire at any shipping or ships within that area, then we bomb those forces out. That's basically the answer. And if they can't be bombed out, here's a cool little trick here, because this one was shown quite well in Venezuela. If for some reason the coastal batteries are in bunkers that are too secure to be directly bombed out and destroyed, then we could conduct special forces raids into their country to slowly and meticulously start dealing with those bunkers one at a time until they don't exist. Because if a bomb can't deal with it, ground forces might be able to deal with it in limited raid-style attacks. There's always a way to be able to deal with the situation, and I think that at this point, that might be our only way forward. And I think that, if anyone's waiting out for a time, that the Iranians might just go, okay, we'll reopen it. You are waiting for something that will never happen. The Iranians are never going to agree to open this thing. They've shown that well enough already. We have to remove their ability to control the Strait to where it's in their hands, whether it stays closed or not. It needs to be open whether they want it to be. So with that, it is time for us to move on out of the Strait of Hormuz, and time for us to move on up and into the interior of the Islamic Republic of Iran, as there was a security, or more so an intelligence report on the situation with the Islamic Republic of Iran. According to the New York Times and information that they were able to get from some intelligence and military estimates, they state that multiple officials said that Iran has about 40% of its pre-war arsenal of drones. Those drones have proved to be a powerful deterrent, and they actually were. While they are easily shot down by American warships, commercial tankers have few to no defenses. Iran also has ample supplies of missiles and missile launchers, which are TELs. At the time of the ceasefire, Iran had access to about half its missile launchers. In the days that immediately followed, it dug out about 100 TELs that had been buried inside caves and bunkers, bringing its stockpile of launchers back up to about 60% of its pre-war levels. That is showing us that at least right now, it's going to be a little bit of a fight once again to be able to try and deal with the Iranians once the shooting war starts. But that is largely our only option. We really have nothing else to do down here. So we're just going to have to see that the war restarts. We'll have to see that our military planning and strategy, or more so trying to deal with the direct problems that are posed by the Iranians and defeating them at that source, and then dealing with the other periphery issues later. Like if you want to, get a nice headline that the chief of the Iranian armed forces was, killed in a bombing, that can wait a couple of weeks. We just need to get the Strait of Hormuz open right now to where the Iranians have no hand, and then deal with the rest of it later. Moving us on out of these pieces of news, however, to give you all a little bit of additional news that we were able to hear out of North Korea. North Korea is just so lonely. They usually were always in the news a little bit here and there, but after the whole war in Ukraine started, and also the war in Iran, the North Koreans just don't get any attention anymore. And they love Daddy America, and they want Daddy America's nice attention. So they fired off a ballistic missile into the Sea of Japan today to try and catch our attention.
What the hell? What the hell? It's like a photo shoot down here. Look at that, his styling with that missile right there. Also, by the way, why is his legs chopped off looking like that?
Oh, it's AI.
What's he doing? I mean, he's just like, I was about to say, this thing's just like buried into the ground right here. But man, I'll tell you what, if Xi Jinping is Winnie the Pooh, what is Kim Jong-un, like the Tasmanian devil over here? It's like this dude's just like losing his mind over here, not getting any attention.
Man, actually, man, it's like a rom-com at this point. He's like, I hate America so much, but now that they don't pay attention to me, something's missing in my heart. I want you back. And they're like trying everything they can to make us look at them. And honestly, we just don't really care about them. And they keep on doing little tricks and stunts like this to kind of bring everyone's attention back towards North Korea, but it's just not really working. There's actually a reason behind this, folks. A lot of people actually don't know this, but this is a significant part of North Korea's foreign policy. Whenever North Korea needs something materially, such as food resources or some sort of concessions, they start to lash out like this. They never actually intend on going all in, like invading South Korea or nuking someone, but they will threaten it significantly, and they will go almost to the very length of conducting an action like that to put enough pressure on the Western world that the Western world goes, okay, calm down. What do you want? We want food. Okay, we'll give you a little bit of food through like the UN or something like that. Will that make you happy? Yeah, it'll make us happy. And then they're appeased for a little bit, until they run out of some other resource. Usually it's some sort of humanitarian resource like food, and then they start lashing out again until they eventually get another concession. So basically they're just bums. They just bum off of everyone. That's their foreign policy. They just threaten you with a switchblade until you give them what they want, and then they back off for a little bit. So, they might be doing that right now, but the thing about that is, though, is that this is a little bit odd, because from what we know, the Russians are providing them materially, at least in terms of food resources and whatnot, just about everything they would have ever wanted by their strategies and foreign policy from the West. So it doesn't really seem like they're doing this anymore to achieve any aim. It might just be for face-saving operations for their country, to show the Korean people that they're still, a formidable force and a threatening one to their enemies, which are the puppets of the American imperialists and the American imperialist dogs that are still within the region. Maybe that's what they're trying to work off of as far as a foreign policy prerogative or a domestic sort of a propaganda initiative, maybe. And that's why I'm thinking it's largely falling into at this point right now. But
I think they're working on actually testing new missiles. I think that's probably what they're doing here. This seems like missile test to me, like more so than just simply posturing. We had heard back in, I can't remember when it was like months ago, that they were working on new missile systems, and they had just fired one of them that was apparently a newer version of a missile just about a week or two ago. So I think they're actually testing stuff. I think they're actually trying to test either new rocket propellant or maybe new missile technology, perhaps. That could be part of it, because it seems to me like they're working pretty fast on a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, it really does. And you know something that's also a little bit crazy, folks. I saw someone in the chat a little while ago, and I thought this was a crazy one. Some people said, "Well, North Korea." I don't even know what their point was. They said something along the lines of like, "North Korea is more stable looking because they're not religious ideologues that are extremists because of some sort of ideology." I guess that person has never heard of Juche because it's basically their state religion and their state ideology at this point. It's almost a religion because they view the Kims as gods. So they are theologically driven. It's just a state-sponsored atheism sort of a thing, but then the atheism turned into theism because now they turned the leaders of the state atheist nation into gods, which basically turns it into a religion of its own.
Basically, Juche in North Korean ideology is the same thing, like for a pop culture reference, as like logic to the Vulcans. That's basically what it is. It's like a religion and also a lifestyle, basically, the way it works. It's a really weird thing, that is, in North Korea. In fact, there's a lot of other countries these days that would love to have a leader that's considered a god at this point. As you can tell, around the world, it seems to be that's a new trend these days, is to make them a cult leader, basically. So, yeah, kind of interesting. But they actually made that and pulled it off in North Korea, and it's still a thing.
Yeah, it really is. It really is crazy, honestly. It's probably one of the it is actually the longest lived and most successful cult of personality that's ever existed on the planet. No other one has survived this long. And it's actually a bit of an enigma, North Korea is, for that reason, because the cult of personality around Stalin completely collapsed right after he died, literally just months later. The cult of personality around Ceausescu collapsed while he was still alive, and then they executed him after his cult of personality collapsed. Like, the Romanians did that themselves. And I think there was a cult of personality around Saddam. That clearly didn't survive. And trying to think of a couple of other leaders. Putin kind of has a little bit of a cult of personality around him, but it's not like an extreme one. Hitler actually had a cult of personality, and that one actually survived up until the very last days of his life, basically. And then when, he did that whole thing with himself in the bunker and all, it kind of collapsed afterwards because, he was supposed to be around with the German people until the end, and then he took the easy way out. But outside of that, though, this is actually the longest lived one. It's survived, I think, 80 years or so. So none of the others have come close to this. So yeah, they are definitely theologically driven or ideologically driven extremists because the Juche ideology demands extremism in support of the Kims to whatever aims or needs are necessary to meet that end. So with that, we are going to be moving on out of North Korea and that interesting little rabbit hole about them. But moving us on out of North Korea, it is now time for us folks to shift our focus north, out of the Middle East and on into Eastern Europe. But before we get to that, there is one last piece of news that I have to cover concerning the situation in the Middle East, which is a very big part of our title. There are significant airlifts ongoing right now, as we can see on Flight Radar 24, by the United States Air Force, involving C-17s, C-130s, C-5 Galaxies, just about every single type of logistics support aircraft you can think of. And there has been a humongous number of these in the air flying in and out of the Middle East over about the past 2.5 to 3 days. It clearly is indicating to us that the U.S. is preparing for future military actions, as the significant amount of flights going into the area is suggesting that they're starting to rearm U.S. munition stores, or starting to rearm U.S. forces and their munitions stores, to put that more properly, and to prepare for future armed actions against Iran, and to also have a stash of bombs to work with to start that new war off with the Iranians. We've also seen that was shown in another example today on the ongoing air bridge, and this picture right here is showing all of the RCH flights flying in and out, and also the Moose flights flying in and out of the Middle East and into Europe, which are then transiting all the way from the United States. So it does appear that the situation as it stands right now is showing that there is a significant amount of U.S. forces flooding into the region, there's a significant amount of ordnances flooding into the region, and those two things combined will lead us to believe that there will be a war happening soon, once again, between the Iranians and the United States of America. But with that, it is now time for us to move on up into Europa, because we have a lot of news that has been coming out of Eastern Europe over the course of this day. But before we move on into that, I do have to say, a humongous thanks to everyone who's been watching tonight so far. We've had 23,000 people here at the peak, and we've also had 122,000 people here over the course of an hour and 4 minutes. What a wonderful thing. What an amazing and incredible thing to see that so many people have been here with us tonight as we've covered the news down in the Middle East. You're about to be joining us here in a moment for the news in Eastern Europe, which has also been quite significant and very good over the course of the day. We got great news to report out of Russia. But I do have to thank you all so much for being here so far. I hope that our news reporting and analysis has been up to enforcer spec, much like it hopefully has been for the past 4 years. But before we move on into the Eastern European news, I do want to thank you all by taking a moment to speak to some of y'all in the chat. We're going to be taking 3 questions and then moving on into the rest of our news for the night. So Matthew, what do we got?
Also, by the way, I see a lot of people in the chat. They're saying, do y'all remember the good old days when the Strait of Hormuz was open? It was a free and fair trade, and the ships simply just sailed through, and that was the end of the story. I remember those days, by the way. Like, it feels like it was ages ago when that was the case, but I remember the days. But now, in the modern day, though, we're in an entirely different world. You know, things change quickly. Now we have Indian sailors yelling, "Let me tell you something! Let me tell you something!" in the middle of the strait, which is really quite a change, I must say. Not a welcome change, to say the least. Maybe we'll see it get back to normal soon, but I don't know. It seems like once things go a little haywire, they never quite go back to normal. But anyways, though, let's jump right into our first 3 super chats. Our first one is going to go to a longtime channel legend. It is none other than BC Skyman. And thank you very much, BC, for that very generous $120 support. And we do appreciate that very, very much. He did not leave a comment, though, but we do appreciate support. And also, I'm not sure, but I think he might have had a problem putting a comment in. Maybe there was a glitch or something, but we do appreciate that, BC. But Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta thank you so much for that unbelievably incredible support and helping this channel to keep on running, BC Skyman. You're an absolute old guard and a channel legend of the stream, and I've got to thank you incredibly for having been around for this long and enjoying the channel and supporting it so that way we can keep it on air and we can keep this news coverage alive and rolling. I also have to say that it's thanks to folks like you, we get a little moment here and there off air every once in a while to wander around. And I know that Matthew will definitely want to talk about this one today because we slipped up secretly to Ogden to go and take a look at the big boy because it had actually come back to Utah and was stopped over at Union Station. And y'all would not believe it, folks. You wouldn't believe it. We actually ran into a fan at the Union Pacific Big Boy meet thing where they brought the big boy around. Matthew, do you want to tell the folks a little bit of the details as to how that transpired?
We were just wandering around the place. We were just wandering around. I didn't know really where I was. I was like, there's some trains or some tracks over here. I was like, you know, trains, y'all know how I feel about trains. Like, y'all know how I feel. But I was like, and the enforcer was like, hey, you want to go up here and see this big boy? And I was like, yeah, let me go see that big boy. Let's see what's going on here. So we went up there, looked around, and just out of the blue, there's like, hey, there's somebody next to us saying, hey, wait a minute, are you guys the enforcers? And I was like, whoa, what the hell? I was like, that's crazy. We've been recognized a few times in public, but it still gets my goat every single time somebody does that. But a really cool interaction, though. It was cool meeting the fella. I think he's in the chat tonight, by the way. But pretty cool, though. It was pretty neat. Got to see the train and everything, which is pretty cool as well. I must still say, I still feel the same way about trains. But, you know, some people say it's train derangement syndrome. I don't know. We'll have to see. But it was a pretty cool thing.
It was pretty cool, and Matthew thought that the whistle on the big boy was pretty neat. He got to hear it, and it is loud. It sounds like people are clocking out of the steel mill or something like that when that thing blows the whistle. But I only took I only took 2 pictures, actually, folks, from this one. I took a load of pictures the last time, but this time around, I was like, hey, let's just go over there and look at it. And I just took a moment to actually admire the engineering that went behind this thing. But these are the only 2 pictures I got. One here of the smoke box with the number boards and the bell and whatnot and the main headlight, and then a little bit of a wider frame one. And those are the only 2 pictures that I took. But it was really cool. We actually got to walk through the Union Pacific rail car as well, which was being carried by this train, which if I had to name the rail car myself, I would put it as, boy, do I love my shareholders rail car, because it was basically just a rolling advertisement for the Union Pacific. It was like, man, our railroad is so cool. And it's like, you know, I should have expected that considering that it is a company PR stunt kind of a thing, but honestly, it was a neat rail car. It smelled nice inside. It smelled like fresh wood. I was like, wow, this is really like swell. Honestly, I really like this. And the big boy was neat to see too. And it was carrying the Abe Lincoln behind it in 1776. And we got to meet a fan. It was really cool. And we actually have that fan here in the chat tonight, Amaros Plays, who actually saw us there in person. I don't know if any of the rest of y'all were here.
I feel like it's one of those moments right there where it's like you're like somebody gives like a speech, like a presidential speech or something. They're like, yeah, you know, it's a strange thing. In fact, we have the person right here in the audience tonight. They're right in the front row. Stand up and tell us about this horrible experience you've had. Stand up and tell the people.
Man, like honestly, it was also something else too, because like I saw him like get a little bit close for a second. He was like side-eyeing us, and I got to tell you folks, every single fan that I've ever met in person, because I've met a good bit more fans than Matthew, because I've been out and about for some reason to just run into more fans for some reason, I don't know why, but there's always something that every fan does, folks. They all side-eye you for like a good 30 seconds because nobody sees our face a whole lot. So everybody always has to take a minute to listen to us talk and be like, is that them? I think that's them. It might be them. Sounds like them. It's them. Like everybody does that. No joke.
Gotta get a little vocal sample first because the face isn't as recognizable since we don't show our face on the stream. So you gotta wait and hear some talking samples first. But I did realize it though. I was keeping my eye out because I'm always kind of like scanning around whenever I'm like in a crowd or something like that. Because you know these days like there's occasionally there's like a lunatic or something like that. Not calling the fan a lunatic by the way. I'm just saying like always scan around. I'm always like hopefully there's not a loon out here in this crowd today or something like that. But I was like, this fellow over here seems to be lurking. He seems to be listening for something. And once he said, hey, you were the enforcers, I was like, oh, okay, that's why he was there. He's trying to get a little vocal sample. That's what he was trying to do.
And so I remember I was sitting there kind of like nerding out with Matthew. I was like, this thing actually was coal-fired, because Matthew asked me a question about, like, is it coal-fired or what? And I was like, actually, it doesn't use coal. It uses oil. When it was originally made in November of 1941 and put on the rails, it didn't run on coal, but a couple of years in, they converted it to run on oil. And I was literally telling Matthew all that right at that moment, and then Amaros, who's in the chat right now, actually spoke up, and he was like, one of y'all's got to be Matthew, and one of y'all's got to be Andrew. And we both looked at him, and he said, oh, you watched the Enforcer? He's like, yeah, and then we fist bumped and everything. And I was like, oh, nice to meet you. He had his kids with him. He told us that he watched the channel. He told us that we got the gas price wrong around here. I'm telling you, I swear, like, by the way, Amaros, down in the part of Salt Lake that we're in, it actually is around 476 or so. I do have to say that like the gas that I get's like premium, so that's what the price I'm working off of. But it's like 430 or so down here for like normal gas last time I went, which was like a week or two ago because I don't drive a whole lot anymore because of the rising fuel prices. But beyond that, it was really neat to meet a fan. It's always neat to meet a fan. It was really cool to get to. I gotta say, folks, I wish we could do fan meets. Like, we're kind of a little bit concerned about the security side of things with that because we know that a lot of people would love to meet us in person. I love to meet a lot of y'all, but it's just that there might be a stray like nut job or something out there that tries to take advantage of a good moment like that and ruin it. And that's kind of what concerns us a little bit because that's a big threat these days. But beyond that, it was really cool to meet a fan and it was an absolute blast. But a humongous thanks to you so much for being here tonight, Amaros, and a humongous thanks to you, BC Scammer, for supporting this channel and helping it to be on air and keep running so that way we can have a little bit of free time like that every once in a while to wander around and meet amazing fans of the channel and members of the LSA. And so a big thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat here is going to go to none other than Chris Feilbach. And thank you very much, Chris, for that very generous $50 support as well. And he said, the ore word of the day is forb. Originally, this was going to be a joke word about how you can fit multiple forbs. You can become the media. Oh, I get it now. I see. He said, but it's a real world. It means a broad-leaved herbaceous plant that is not a grass, sedge, or rush.
Sedge, like Sedgway, like that's a last name out there, Sedgway. I wonder if that's what it's about. But beyond that, I gotta say a humongous thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running, Chris. And thank you for another amazing orb word of the day. It's always a wonderful thing to hear the orb word of the day. We always need an orb word of the day ever since the Orb of Judgment went viral, which I still think is wild, folks. Like we've gone viral over a couple of things in this channel's history. The last thing I expected, though, folks, to go viral over was the Orb of Judgment. It literally got like millions of views when it was clipped in other places. Weirdest thing ever. But I do thank you incredibly for keeping that alive. It was one hell of a moment in channel history. And I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on and into the last question of the segment. And then we're going to be moving on into the rest of the news.
And also, by the way, before we grab that last one, to read off the comment that BC Skyman added in since he had the glitch with the super chat, he said, Iran has been the #1 sponsor of terror for 47 years, and it's time to free the Persian people. And he said, we must avenge the 40,000 dead in Iran.
I would agree so, and I think that's something that a lot of people have been missing, and we've even really stopped talking about to a point here on the channel because we're trying to deal with the direct national security threats and more so articulate those to the public. But the Iranians have conducted a crime against humanity in this very year. They killed 40,000 of their own people inside of their own country because they were protesting the government. They weren't trying to overthrow the government from what we could tell in the long run, now in hindsight. They were just protesting the government and demanding better actions in support of their people. And in turn, they killed 40,000 of those well-intentioned folks inside of Iran. Imagine, folks, for a minute, that the U.S. government called up the National Guard in the United States of America because you went out to protest, and they wiped out 40,000 people in 2 weeks nationwide. Would y'all want that government to stay in charge, or would you want some country from across the seas to come over and try and help you be broken out of such authoritarian ilk as that? And I think a lot of people would say that they want to be liberated of a government like that. And that's something that certainly should happen inside of Iran. I would hope in the best case scenario we could see something like that happen. But I would also hope, at the same time, BC Scammon, that the U.S. government doesn't install a new dictator to run the country, that we actually allow the Iranian people to decide what kind of government they want and what leader they want in an unfettered form, without really a lot of U.S. involvement. If they want some form of an Islamic emirate, like many other Middle Eastern countries, then they should have as they wish. If they want a monarchy, they can have that. If they want a federal republic, they can have that as well. But I think it should be up to the self-determination of the Iranian people once the Islamic regime was overthrown. But outside of all the threats that have been posed to Americans, and the hypothetical millions that could be killed, or the hypothetical thousands that could be killed in one way or another, in any sort of a hypothetical scenario, the Iranians have actually killed 40,000 of their own people. That's not a hypothetical scenario. They did it. We watched it when it was happening here on the show, and we reported on it. There was a lot of footage we couldn't even show y'all because of how barbaric it was. And I would certainly agree with you, BC Scammon. For that one reason alone, that is more than enough of a proper justification to fight a war with Iran, is to see that their government is held accountable for crimes against humanity of that regard. But a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the last question of the segment, and then we're going to be getting on into the rest of the news.
All right, so we'll grab this last super chat, and then we have some breaking news after this that's quite interesting and could be a big tell about what's coming up here in the future when it comes to United States actions toward Iran. We'll get to that in just a minute, though. But moving on to our third and final super chat of this segment, this one goes to It's Zio, and thank you very much to Zio for that $50 support, and we do appreciate that very, very much. And he said, for the boys, and love the streams.
And thank you so much for supporting Zio, and thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running. I got to say that we are absolutely appreciative of your support and helping it to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep these streams alive and rolling. And I got to thank you massively for that support, because it's folks like you who help these streams that you enjoy to be possible for millions of people to enjoy every month. I think this month so far, to give you all a little bit of an idea of how many people have watched, just in the past 28 days, 8.6 million people have watched this channel, which we're entirely honored for every single one of those millions that watch this channel every month to get their news. And so humongous thanks to you so much once again for that incredible support and helping the channel to keep on rolling. And with that, we're going to be moving on out of this question segment and on into Europe and all of the news that we've been able to get from there today. But before we get to that, we do have to cover that news that is fresh and garden variety. Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so this might be a big tell, or it might not. We'll just have to leave this up for debate. But right now, we're seeing that apparently the U.S. president's schedule tomorrow has been cleared off from the looks of it. This is what's being reported right now from the White House Press Pool Reports Twitter page. It looks like they're saying that apparently the president will be engaged in executive time, and it's closed press tomorrow on Sunday, April the 19th. So that's a little bit interesting, because usually, even though it's Sunday, there's usually something that he's doing. But it sounds like, based on this report right here, that there's going to be closed press all day long tomorrow if that report is accurate. So that could indicate, after tonight's Situation Room briefing, that maybe they're making final preparations. Maybe they're going to be monitoring a new attack on Iran, possibly. It's sort of unclear right now, but we'll have to see, though. But that is a little bit telling, perhaps. But Enforcer, what is your take before we move into the rest of the news?
It sounds like it might be leading to something. We might be hearing an announcement by the United States that the war is basically back on. We could be seeing really anything happening, or it could be something that we don't expect, because this is always an option, that the president's going to come out tomorrow and say that nothing's ever been better and the situation's completely resolved and everything's fine and the Iranians have agreed to everything we want and it was a complete victory. Like, no, it could be like that as well. Who's to say? I generally have to say, folks, I'll have to wait until tomorrow, because there's no way to accurately predict what in the world is even going to be said, because it could be something good, or it could be something that makes no sense and is basically founded in fantasy. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on out of this fresh news that just came out a moment ago, and hopefully we'll be able to have some good news to report tomorrow, I would hope, on that. But moving us on out of that, it's now time for us to move on and up into Europe, as we have been able to get some decent news. And when I mean decent news, it's absolutely incredible news out of Europe today. And more particularly, Russia. Or as they call it in Russian, the Российской Федерации. Inside of Moscow.
Russia.
But anyways, moving on into Moscow, we have gotten the best news that anybody could get today, folks. It's Christmas come early. It's a Christmas miracle. And it truly is. It's amazing. According to Reshetnikov, who is Russia's economic minister, the reserves in Russia are largely exhausted. And according to the information that came out today from Russia's Minister of Economic Development, he stated that the reserves had largely been depleted. And the macroeconomic situation, which is the nationwide economic picture, is more challenging than in recent years. According to the Russian Minister of Economic Development, Maxim Reshetnikov, according to his statement at the All-Russian Forum on Entrepreneurship. And so we do understand that at this moment, the Russian Federation is out of money. Apparently, the financial reserves, or the cash reserves in the Russian Federation for civilian enterprise, even for the government, have been depleted to a point that they're at non-existence now, meaning that they really have no money left. Then technically, the Russian Federation might actually go bankrupt here in the near future. Now, bankruptcy in the governmental or national sense does not mean that they start to liquidate assets and they sell off the house and the pooch and all that stuff. It generally means that they're going to start seeing skyrocketing inflation, defaulting on loans, which could be detrimental for the Russians, especially considering how much foreign lending they've undertaken from some of their allied countries recently, which you could also see that affects those countries as well, and that might lead to significant financial calamities in China and elsewhere. And we also understand that would lead to basically a collapse of the entire domestic economy in Russia as well. It would almost become a land of barbarism and anarchy almost at that point, with how lawless and how little the Russian Federation central government would be able to exert control throughout most of the country. We also were able to hear that another chief economic expert, the same one that we had quoted several days ago, Nigmatulin, has apparently cited that Russia ranks now as the 51st out of 53 developed nations on economic parameters, and even stated that it's time to oust the leadership responsible for the catastrophe.
Whoa,
that's window speak right there.
Oh, man, apparently, if this statement right here is true, and he really did say that in this speech right here, apparently he wanted to take it up another notch, because I don't recall him saying quite that extreme of a statement yesterday. It sounds like he decided to go a little bit further today.
Man, yesterday he was like, the situation isn't that good. We need to see drastic changes. Today, overthrow the government. It's like, hey, man, it's like, you're about to fall out a window here. You might want to make that a little less on the nose. That's a little direct right there.
He's speaking truth, though. I mean, you got to give him his credit for having the balls to speak the truth. Now, we don't know if this guy supports the Ukraine war or not. We don't know that, but it could be that maybe just looking out for his own self-interest about the economy collapsing. That could be it. But he's got balls for saying it, because I'm sure he's aware that Putin doesn't take kindly to people yapping like that.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't. Certainly doesn't. But this picture that came out today of the Russian Federation economically is looking incredibly grim. If the Russian Minister of Economic Development is saying that the Russians are out of cash reserves, They're completely out at this point right now. The Russians sugarcoat everything. Even the economic ministers in Russia do. They'll say something like, Russia is in a difficult economic time, but we will manage. They'll say something like that. If someone comes out and says, we're literally out of money, we can largely guarantee they've been out of money for some time now, and they've been running on fumes. Basically, as soon as the money comes in, it's all going out to pay the bills, in a sense. With the economic, well, not really economic policymakers, but economic advisors like Nigmatulin, who's a fairly significant one, it turns out, in Russia, making such drastic statements as he has been making over today and yesterday, it's obvious now that the Russian Federation is in absolutely dire economic straits and might be flat out broke even right now. That means that as far as a crisis time for the Russians, the crisis time is here. The money is gone. They don't have anything left to even fund the war or even keep any economic activity alive inside of the country. So that once again would start putting their eyes further west, and possibly it's some sort of a last-ditch scenario where a war with NATO might be able to turn around their fortunes, or it might lead them to a complete destruction, which is what they're already heading towards in an economic sense right now. A lot of people are currently talking about this major bombshell that came out today from the Russian economic minister, and a lot of people are wondering what's going to be happening from here. And Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about this as well?
Okay, so now that we're hearing, and this is not the first time we've heard this, by the way, but we're hearing Russian officials coming out and warning that the economic reserves inside the Russian Federation are largely depleted for the most part. And basically, Russia's doing the equivalent of living paycheck to paycheck, and the paycheck's not really cutting it either anymore. And now they're warning of a new bank disaster. So what are your thoughts? 41% said Russia will go broke and the war will end because they're dead broke. 37% said China will bail out Russia and the war goes on. And 12% said the U.S. will bail them out. So oddly enough, honestly, that does look like right there, possibly maybe the Russian Federation right there. Man, they're teasing Russia. Damn, that's tough. But I will say, basically, what the Russian Federation is right now, they're basically like in a wooden boat with holes in it, and they have a bucket, and they're trying to take the water out of the little wooden boat with holes all in it. It's a sinking ship. It's going down, but they're trying to do something to save it. And I think they're still getting help from China. I think China's largely probably bailing them out for the most part, because it serves China's interest to do that. We're seeing China right now in the Middle East. They're engaging in a proxy war against the United States through Iran. And also, they're essentially engaging in a proxy war against the West in Ukraine as well. Now, granted, the U.S. has taken a step back from the Ukraine war, but it still affects Europe, and it still is a proxy for China against the West. So I think personally, I'm with the 38%. China will bail them out, and the war will go on, because Russia is China's only real friend in the world that has any real significance to it, outside of North Korea, that is, and that's a whole different situation. So China has to have Russia. They need Russia intact, and they need a command structure, and Putin fits that bill. So I think they'll bail them out to keep them as a viable ally. So I'm with the 38%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I think that I would have to be with the 12%. The U.S. is going to bail them out. I'm just kidding, by the way.
They kind of have. They kind of have, though, with those lifting of oil sanctions, by the way. If y'all didn't hear, they swore the other day, the U.S. did, that they weren't going to extend the sanctions relief for Russia. And then sneakily yesterday, they actually gave Russia another extension of sanctions relief, which they completely lied about that. They blatantly lied to our faces about that. And then they passed sanctions relief. So they kind of have bailed Russia out, at least somewhat.
Whoa, don't get political there, Matthew. Don't point out that the government lied there. They wouldn't lie to anyone. That's just wrong to say that. That's wrong, Matthew. They didn't lie to anyone. They're playing 5D chess. It's quantum messaging, don't you know?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that was just a blatant lie, really. Though that wasn't even quantum messaging. I mean, you had one U.S. official come out and say, "Oh, we're not going to be extending the sanctions relief for Iran or Russia," and then there's a sneaky announcement on the website of the U.S. Agencies saying, "Oh, well, actually, here's another extension of the general license for Russian oil." It's like, did y'all not think we were going to catch that? It's like people watch that stuff, by the way. Like, people watch these sites and they catch these announcements. So it wasn't going to be that sneaky. But yeah, they basically gave Russia another bailout, essentially. Now, granted, not a massive bailout, but they gave them one nonetheless.
For shame, Matthew, for shame. Like, the U.S. government would ever lie to your teeth. I mean, like, they're the most transparent government that's ever been elected, Matthew. This is the most transparent administration ever. They never lie about anything. If anything, they're telling you more than you need to know, you little peon who, is a voter who may have voted for them or may have not. How dare you act like you demand an answer or some sort of explanation or honesty from them, considering that you put them in office to where they owe that to you? That's ridiculous. But anyways, enough of that, folks. Enough of the sarcasm here. I would have to say, in all honesty, though, I think that the Chinese actually can't really bail the Russians out that much, because the amount of money that would be needed to bail Russia out at this point is probably to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars, and China probably doesn't have the liquidity to be able to give Russia that kind of money, and if they did, they would probably have to lend a lot from other foreign banks to come up with that kind of money in liquid amounts to give to the Russians to keep the Russian government and the economy alive. And it's basically throwing your money into a pit, because it's not like the Russians are economically going to turn around. It's not like they're going through a natural recession or a depression where things will rebound after some time and there will be a return on investment. The Russians, as long as the war continues in Ukraine, are digging a pit for themselves because of the sanctions that have been leveraged against them by everybody for the most part in the world. So the Chinese would throw that money into that pit, keep Russia alive for a little bit longer, but there would never be a rebounding. It would just slow down the amount of time that Russia would economically collapse, meaning that China took on a whole lot of risk without any gain of a reward in return, like Russia surviving as a key ally. They would still collapse. It would just take a little bit longer. So I'll be entirely honest with you, I think that the Russians are just going to go broke. I don't know if that means the war would end necessarily as soon as they went broke. It might go on for some time even after that. But the domestic pressure would ratchet up inside of Russia to the point that we might see some sort of a coup attempt against Putin where he's ousted. Or we may see the Russians get desperate enough that they would start a war with NATO to try and see if they could go all in and somehow recover their situation from what is now unrecoverable, at least from what we can see. But moving us on out of that major news in Moscow, we have also been able to hear that Lithuania and Latvia have united together today to deny their airspace to the Slovakian Prime Minister, Robert Fico. I heard he had a great FICO credit score for his planned trip to Moscow for the May 9th celebrations, forcing him to arrange an alternative route. Ooh!
Boo-hoo, boo-hoo. Honestly, that's actually quite bad these days. Like, before, it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. Like you said, I'd fly around a little bit extra. But now with the increased aviation fuel cost, I mean, that's a big deal. That dude's having to pay out a lot more money for that little trip.
Man, I gotta tell you, man, with a mug like that, I mean, that might be quite expensive.
Oh! Oh!
Oh!
He looks like a smash burger.
He kind of does. I don't know how to describe him, but, you know, a lot of subject matter there, like to say the least. A lot of subject matter. They say, folks, that this guy might be going the way of Orban, where he gets ousted here soon. But we have yet to see, and we'll have to find out someday once the elections come back around in Slovakia. But moving us on out of that, we also were able to hear, by the way, folks, just in case y'all were curious, Lukashenko ain't no bitch. He just had to say that today, quite literally. I'm not even kidding. He basically said it in the Russian way. He stated that no matter what negotiations the West conducts with me, I perfectly understand that I am not their son of a bitch, and they would gladly chew me up and spit me out.
Bro, tell us how you really feel, Lukashenko. Tell us how you really feel.
Man, Mr. Potato Head out here, I'm the bitch. It's like, okay, dude, whatever. You're Putin's bitch. So it's like, what difference does it make?
It's like, nobody said you were recently, so a little insecurity much?
Man, it's like literally everything's silent. Zelensky, though, on the other hand, is like, I swear to God, if you invade this country, I'm going to fly up there and I'm going to kidnap you. And then the next day later, Lukashenko comes out, I'm not a bitch. It's like, what?
Oh, man.
Where did
I
it
think
come
that's
from?
insecurity. I think the dude's feeling like that. Yeah, honestly, though, I would feel like that, too, if I was him, because he is Russia's bitch, basically. Because if Putin tells him to do something, he's like a good dog. He does it.
Also, it's like, who in the West wants Belarus to be a Western-aligned country? They're a straight-up dictatorship, the last of its kind in Europe. Lukashenko's been the leader of Belarus, folks, since it became an independent state in 1991. It's not like anyone wants Belarus in Europe. Like, they want Belarus in Europe after his ass is gone and the dictatorship around him falls apart. They don't want, like, Europe isn't going, oh, yes, we'd love to have an ultra-corrupt country with a dictator that's been in charge for 30-something years to be a part of the European Union and NATO. That would never happen. The corruption issues there alone would stop them from joining NATO, and not only that, the corruption issues would be so bad that they wouldn't even be an economically stable partner for the European Union. They would milk the European Union dry and crash them economically if they joined. So nobody's talking to Belarus about joining anything. So I don't, like, he's literally just projecting his own internal thoughts of how he feels, I guess, these days, because it's not like anyone wants him in Europe right now. We want the Belarusian nation and the Belarusian people in Europe, but without Lukashenko. But anyways, moving us on out of that whole side note, just to let y'all know, by the way, you know, that way tomorrow, you know, if you're waking up and, you know, you're with your wife and kids or whatnot, and they're like, oh, I'm going to school, but this kid keeps bullying me. And your wife is like, oh, man, my boss at my job is, like, really bearing down on me. You'd be like, well, you know, at least you don't have it as bad as Lukashenko. Why? Well, he's not a bitch. like, I guess you can tell him that. I don't know.
Man, I'll tell you, he's like those edgy teenagers that go through, like, or at least this is what it was like where we grew up. Like those edgy teenagers, they're like trying to prove that they're like real men and stuff like that. They're like teenagers, they're feeling real edgy and stuff like that. And they're like, man, I ain't no bitch. It's like, nobody said you were. It's like, what are you going on about?
Man, next thing you know, man, Lukashenko's going to be singing that new rap song. He's going to be saying, I'm driving around the block, ain't no scary and crazy. I don't even care no more. You know, he's going to be singing that. Oh, man.
Oh, man.
Man, I can see it. But anyways, moving us on out of that whole thing that happened, the Ukrainians also conducted a humongous drone attack on the Russian Federation overnight, and the damage was pretty decent. Down in Sevastopol, we were able to confirm that an oil depot had caught on fire within the area of the port of Sevastopol. The fire is burning quite nicely there, keeping the people of Sevastopol warm in these spring months that are somewhat mild. We've also been able to hear that up in Yesk, the city of Yesk was hit quite badly. Observe. It's just the UFO.
Oh, yes.
Man, it's like just off in the distance. And yes, we also get to see the smoke rising as well from the impacts, confirming that the city of Yesk was hit by Ukrainian drone attacks. The city of Yesk is a little important because there is a aerodrome outside the city that has actually been used by the Russian Federation's maritime naval aviation forces and also the Russian Federation's drone forces as well. That's why we believe the city was attacked, was for that reason, and we're still waiting for more accurate damage assessments to come out from the area. We've also seen that the city of Tuapse is still on fire from the attacks of Yor, and we were able to see on the commercial flight the song playing in the background.
In the Rendlesham Forest, there was a strange light, and it said that the soldiers were exposed to radiation. Could it be visitors from a strange world? Let's play 10 minutes of commercials, and we'll tell you there's nothing that really happened.
Man, we will end this 30-minute episode with, well, that's crazy. See y'all next time. It's okay. That fire in Tuapse is cooking up nice. This window is dirty as shit on this airplane. Who in the world is flying this thing? That thing is like covered in a film of dirt, dude. Look at that.
It's like it flew through like a mosquito pit or something, and they got all over the window.
Dude, somewhere out there in, like, Turkmenistan, this thing was off-roading over, like, dunes and shit. I love it, like, on the pilot's free time. They're like, let's go dooning with the 737. It's like, I think not. Probably not a good idea. But moving us on out of the Port of Tuapse, which is clearly still suffering and burning quite heavily, we also heard that attacks were conducted on Rostov-on-Don and Taganrog. And in the middle of our stream, just when we went live, we did get to see the physical damage coming out of Taganrog and the fires, which once again appear to be coming from a specific factory and manufactory near to the southern end of the city, which would be about right here. We believe that this might be another attack on the aircraft manufacturing and maintenance facilities here in the city of Taganrog, and they may be trying to render further damage. We did see some larger industrial buildings within this area where the picture was taken, and we can also see some residential high-rises nearby that would be able to give us the sort of vantage points to be able to see this area. So it does appear that they have hit that manufacturing and repair facility once more within Taganrog. Moving us on out of the Taganrog area, we've also been able to hear that up near the area of Sizran and Kubachubby, let me see if I can get that, Novokubishevsk, or whatever the hell I was about to say a second ago, we did also get to see some Ukrainian drones pulling off air shows to be able to get through the gunfire. Watch this FP1 of the Ukrainian Armed Forces literally pull some aerobatics to try and avoid the rifle fire from the ground. Here it comes, and oh, look at it, a little bobbing and a weaving.
Wow.
Oh!
Oh, wow.
And here's another clip of it.
Oh. This is a very calm sight. This truck yard right here has no idea that there's a attack drone fighting for its life, like in the sky right behind them. They have no clue.
Bro, at this trucking yard, they're like, okay, make sure that the manifest is correct for the cargo. It's going to Vladivostok, check. And then in the background, there's a flying bomb bobbing and weaving through rifle fire about a half mile away, making its way in to blow up somewhere in the city. It's like, it can't get better than that. In Sisron, we did confirm that one of these very drones actually hit the refinery, and the refinery was burning profusely as a result of the direct attacks. We also got a little bit more proof of that as well right here.
Oh.
Oh.
Ah.
Man, Matthew was so shocked, he just named off the Lebanese prime minister. He went, oh. Bro, that's like...
Man, I tell you what, Ukraine putting those oil sanctions back on him. I tell you what, the U.S. said, give him another break. And the Ukrainians said, yes, sir. And went to work.
Man, the United States said, let's give him a break. And Zelensky said, did you say break them? Like, it's like, close enough.
Oh, that's a good hit, too. That's a strong hit.
Oh, a clean hit. A nice clean break. And even the kid said, stuff's effed up. And I'd agree with that kid. The fire's burning nicely in Sisron. Just a little bit further down the Volga, about 40 miles away in Novokubishevsk, which is a wonderful town to say. I feel like, folks, if they ever came up with a Russian version of Scooby-Doo, they'd be like, Novokubishevsk, where are you? But beyond that, we did get to see that this refinery was also hit and on fire today. Up to your map, блядь!
That's what we call a fire.
Sir, there's oil on the ground. You didn't see oil on the ground? This man is sick. Send him to the infirmary.
Man, Russia loves their fires. If Ukraine isn't setting them, the Russians are setting them.
I feel like the Ukrainians are really starting to wear down that arson bug in Russia, where they, love fires. I feel like everyone's kind of getting worn out of that, actually.
Man, it's a historic event. Out of all these years, the very Russian Slavic tradition of arson has gone by the wayside thanks to this horrid war.
Man, at the beginning of the war, every single Russian that saw one of those major fires, they would go outside and look at it and be like, hark the herald angels sing, rejoice everyone, a fire! 4 years in, oh no. Another fire. Man, they're all just getting tired of it at this point. I feel like, folks, the best cure to arson, the tendencies of arsonism that were within the Russian populace before this war was the Ukrainians just catching everything on fire inside their country, and then they kind of got worn out of them pretty quickly. Just a few years, and it did the trick, really. But moving us on out of that whole deal over there at the Volga River, we also got to see inside of Ukraine that the Ukrainians were also setting a lot of fires of their own on the Russian forces. Up here in the Sumy area, we did get to see some Russian forces getting hit near to the area of Miropolye, which is along the Sumy border with the Russian Federation. They were hit by the 21st Brigade.
Oh wow, they have dual what do they call this thing? Musket pistols?
Pistols.
Yeah, little pistols right there. Look at that. They got the little flintlock pistols right there. Look at that. And they got the ace of spades in the middle because they have the cards.
We're not here to play cards, but we're winning them. But anyways, here comes the Russian column near Miropolye. Oh, Matthew, I haven't been hearing a lot from those American people who really support Russia, like a certain Patrick. I haven't been hearing much from them lately. How's that whole thing going for them?
I would imagine most of them have moved on. They've probably moved on to Iran. That's my guess. They just jump from thing to thing. If Russia, Ukraine's a hot topic, they'll be like, oh, Russia's fighting for the morals of the West and trying to make sure that we're nice and taken care of and against the global cabal. And then if it turns into the Iran-U.S. war, then all of a sudden it's, oh, well, really, the Ayatollah, he's the one who has it figured out, and it's the evil global cabal in the West that's trying to hurt them. And they just jump from thing to thing.
When you look around in a place like Iran, you don't see moral degradation. You just see government officials beating people, which is clearly better. Like, it's like, no, it's like, where are you getting that idea from? You want to get beat? It's like, I don't want to get beat by like a cop and have that be justified. That's ridiculous. But moving us on from that and down into the location unknowns, we also got to see the Russian casualty report over the past 24 hours, which was graciously provided by none other than Miss Disa, a channel legend and the keeper of the records. According to Miss Disa, the Russian losses for this day, the average troop losses stayed above 1,000 a day. Tanks and APCs are above average, which is great to hear. 82 artillery pieces is the 10th highest loss of the day, and 2,104 ranks as the 16th highest in drone losses. Over the course of the past 24 hours, 1,080 Russian soldiers have been wounded and killed, along with 6 tanks, 10 APCs, 82 artillery systems, 4 MLRSs, 2,104 drones, and 180 fuel trucks and supply trucks. What a wonderful day. No Bobcats, though, but it was still a great day in most categories. Moving us on from that, it's now time for us to move towards the Belgrade area. If y'all did not know, the 72nd Mechanized Brigade destroyed 2 rare Mista S SPGs. Those right there at the top right of the screen. They blew 2 of those up today while they were still in Belgrade. Here's one of them. Oh, bliad! And it got blown up right there. Poof. There's the explosion. And now it's time to get Mista S number 2. Toasting up.
Look at it. Burning.
Man. Ooh. Like, man.
Oh, man. Roasters right here. Look at that.
These
not quite Kenny Rogers roasters, but it's a different type. They call this Ruski roasters.
Man, let me see if I can do a Kramer. Yeah, or something like that.
What the hell? Man, you gotta be careful with Kramer.
Oh.
You gotta be careful with Kramer.
These peanuts are making me thirsty. But anyways, that would actually be George Costanza, actually. But we can still see them hitting the second Mista S right here. You know, Kramer was really funny until that whole thing happened at that one comedy club, and then it seemed to kind of fallen off a little bit quickly after that. But we can see them here continuing to hit the Russian Federation's SPGs inside the Belgrade Oblast. And a D30.
You know, I think I should go ahead and like copyright that or something if it isn't already copyrighted. Ruski Roasters. I have a feeling that someone's going to open up like, I don't know, like a chicken shack or something like that inside of Russia called Ruski Roasters. And they're going to be like, this is the brand new idea that I just had out of the very much vision of my imagination. Ruski Roasters, man.
Man, it's kind of like
what if it was like a war themed restaurant called Ruski Roasters, where it was like the grill is like a tank, where they have like the fire on the hatch or something like that. Like that would actually, I think that might actually be something that Russia's interested in until the FSB came knocking and didn't like it, and then they put you on the grill.
Man, they put them on that griddle quick. Like they wouldn't let that one stand long. But also, they don't respect copyright in Russia. So even if you copyrighted that here, they'd still do that in Russia. You'd be like, it was my idea. It's a great Russian idea and all that crap.
Bastards.
But moving us on up towards Svatove, we also get to see the Ukrainian heavy bombers, the Baba Yagas, mining Russian supply routes by just dropping dozens of little mines onto the roadways that the Russians are using. Just look at that. Tons of them. This is how you win wars, folks. You just fly a camera over a location and then just drop dozens of mines on the road. Clearly, this will create losses. And they do, actually, quite often. I like watching this. So therapeutic. Look at that.
Just dropping it. Letting them have it.
Man, someone's about to come in. How dare you laugh and make fun of an allied nation fighting a sworn enemy of the Republic? How dare you?
I'm not even laughing.
Damn. Okay, like that came out so seriously. I'm not even laughing. Man, but moving us on down to Konstantinivka, we also get to see the 104th Territorial Defense Brigade striking some Russian forces down here. This is on the outskirts of Konstantinivka, a couple of miles away.
I'll tell you what, might have to hit them with that hit him with that crazy laugh in a minute. The laugh of someone who like flip flops like a fiend. You know what I'm talking about. The crazy
Iran
laugh.
is really the right country. I guess you could say that they are blessed by God. That one, like,
yeah, the unhinged laugh.
oh man.
Some say it's the laugh of losers. That's what they call it. They said you just wake up and you feel like a loser. It's just it's a bad thing when you wake up feeling like that. It's not quite a problem with waking up on the wrong side of the bed. It's just waking up in a bed at all. It's that loser feeling, I tell you.
Man, I gotta say, I always love it, folks, with like extremely political people, like people who are very hyper fixated on politics on the left or the right. I always find it funny because they imagine they're in the movie Avatar, to where one day you can be a human and then the next day you can be an avatar. And I hate to tell all those people, a little bit of a reality check here. Today you wake up and you're an American, and when you wake up tomorrow, you're still going to be an American. So really kind of rooting on and cheering for our enemies and their success because you just don't like something domestically within the United States is kind of a little stupid, because you're basically asking for your own defeat because you're also an American. A little bit goofy to me.
There's a difference. Like, we criticize, like we've criticized the U.S. Strategy right now against Iran. We've criticized it heavily, but we're not saying it with like some undertone of like hoping the U.S. gets defeated. Like, we hope the U.S. wins. That's why I've said before, and also the Enforcer has. Hopefully, they pull together a good strategy, because if it's a bad strategy, we're not going to win, but we're hoping they pull together a good strategy, and that's why we're criticizing it, hopefully thinking that maybe if we say something about it, maybe somebody that actually has some importance will hear that and maybe think, oh, that's actually a decent idea. Maybe we should possibly change our mode of operation. But some people are out there literally actually rooting on the defeat of the United States that are living here in America, and they do it for cash, which is very disturbing.
Yeah, also I saw someone say, not all your viewers are American. Well, I'm an American, so I talk from an American perspective. Like, I'm looking out for the interest of my own country. If you're not from our country and you're in an allied nation, we also look out for your interests as well. But because we are Americans and because we're citizens of the nation, along with many other people who watch, we look out for the best interest of the United States of America in our analysis. Because I feel like every citizen of every nation should always put their nation first and foremost when they're making decisions, and should make decisions based off of what's good for them and their people, instead of what's good for another country that doesn't even that they don't even technically represent, because they're not a citizen of a foreign nation, they're a citizen of a nation of their own. But moving on from that and down towards the Pokrovsk front, the Dobropilya direction, the 131st Recon Battalion was also targeting and striking Russian infantry throughout this day, including those in the drone forces, like this one right here. Look at these Russians. They don't know they're being observed. And now the Ukrainians are going to start knocking out their internet communications. Oh, bliat. Now the Russians know they're in trouble because the Ukrainians have found them.
Also, by the way, while we're watching this right here, I'm seeing Twitter posts coming out claiming that the U.S. has declined a plan to seize Karg Island, warning that U.S. troops would be easy targets. So, I mean, that's what's coming out right now. I'm trying to go look at the actual source of that information. It looks like it was a mainstream outlet that might have reported that, but we'll see here. Also, it looks like we have a new satellite pass at Karg Island, actually. That's a pretty interesting thing. I thought that data was actually being restricted, but it looks like we have a new satellite view of Karg Island. We'll check that out during the question segment.
Yeah, that's interesting sounding. Quite interesting. And also, I see someone say, we don't support everything our country does. That would be cultish. Well, no, and I don't think anyone should. I mean, like, if you actually care for the country and you truly care for its best interests, you should be loaded up with criticisms, because America is not a perfect place, And if you really love the country and you really love the people in the country, you would point out its imperfections and try and seek perfection in the process of that. That's a huge part of the First Amendment, is that the First Amendment gives us that right and that privilege to be able to criticize. Well, it's a privilege, it is a right, and a right alone, to criticize the government and to seek out perfection and to point out imperfections. And I feel like that is certainly a civic duty of every U.S. citizen lesson is to look out for our best interest, to find criticism, criticize and scrutinize, and then demand for better. That's the American way, and that's why this nation has done so well for 250 years, is because we've allowed for that sort of criticism to lead to improvement. But moving us on from that, we have also been able to see that the Ukrainian armed forces were able to conduct some airstrikes within the remnants of southern Pokrovsk to be able to strike and destroy Russian forces. And we see them here truly obliterating the Russian armed forces. Take a look at that. Holy moly. What an airstrike. Damn. It's a real hell of an airstrike right there.
This place is already so torn up, so I'm not sure the airstrike really did much.
Yeah, well, it did take out the Russians in that building, so I guess it did that. But as far as really damaging the facade of the city streets, not so much any longer. Meanwhile, down in the southern front, near to the area of, I believe it is called, at this point, the Novopavlivka front, we were also able to see the 225th Assault Regiment repelling a Russian motorbike attack, or a motorbike assault, as they call it. Oh, look, a Ural. That's kind of rare. Well, it's rarer now. We also were able to see this Russian under a tree line, these Russians on motorbikes, trying to make their assault, going into a garage. That's a bad idea. And we see that it's already panning out to be a pretty bad idea. Now they're all grouping up on one side of the parking lot, because nothing ever says safety like grouping up in pairs, or actually in a trio like that, in one small group, and it looks like that Ukrainian drone operator just got a trio.
Let's see here. I'm also seeing some other news here that's coming out. Some people are claiming that the president's posted a video appearing to show images saying that the Iranian people need help again. I'm trying to find it, though. He's been posting like crazy. Like, geez, there's like all kinds of posting here. I'm trying to find the thing. So I'll be looking for that. But, man, there's like Post Central here.
Dang, I mean, we'll have to see what all that pans out into. But with that in mind, folks, it's now time for us to finally move on up and into Kyiv to cover the speech of the president of Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky, here on day 1,515 of the news from around the world. And so, without further ado, it's a very short one today. It's only 2 minutes. Here is the speech. Peach!
Peach!
Шановні українці і українки, слідчі Національної поліції та СБУ ведуть зараз розслідування всіх обставин нападу в Києві на звичайних людей. Нападник був ліквідований, він тримав заручників. Одного з заручників, на жаль, убив. 4 людей він убив просто на вулиці. Ще одна жінка померла в лікарні. Важке поранення. Мої співчуття рідним та близьким загиблих. 4 заручників вдалося врятувати. Станом на цей час відомо, що 14 людей були поранені. Цифра, на жаль, може збільшитись. Люди ще звертаються по допомогу. Серед поранених хлопчик. Йому 12 років. Лікарі надають необхідну допомогу. Бажаємо якнайшвидшого одужання пораненим. Відомо, що нападник підпалив квартиру перед тим, як вийти зі зброєю на вулицю. Раніше він вже притягувався до кримінальної відповідальності. Довго жив на Донеччині, народився в Росії. Зараз з'ясовується все, що може бути про нього відомо і чому він таке наробив. Треба перевірити кожну деталь. В роботі у слідчих кілька версій, всі його електронні пристрої, телефон, всі зв'язки будуть перевірені. Міністр внутрішніх справ України, Служба безпеки України та Генеральний прокурор України будуть інформувати суспільство. Вся перевірена інформація має бути надана нашим людям. Я хочу відзначити також усіх тих, хто допомагав на місці подій, хто рятував наших людей, хто допомагав пораненим, допомагав поліції. Дякую також усім нашим друзям в світі, які висловлюють зараз співчуття. Абсолютно жахлива річ. Втрачати людей ось так у звичайний день, в звичайному місті. Вічна пам'ять загиблим. Слава Україні!
Ram Slava.
And Hirom Slava.
Oh, there we go.
I was fighting for my life to get to the mute button. I was doing research and I was muted and I was talking and nobody was hearing. It was like a nightmare.
You know, some people have said that the mute button is really profound, but I say, what even is the mute button? But anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on into the discoveries that Matthew has been able to find. Matthew, what have we found here?
Okay, so it looks like I see two interesting things that the president has posted tonight on Truth Social. Also, by the way, he's been posting like crazy. Like there is like it's a sea of posts right here. But getting through all the sea of posts, I am seeing a video here on his Truth Social page that is about 40 seconds long, and the opening clip is someone spray painting on a wall. It says, "President Trump, please help," and then the rest of the video is it looks like supporters of Reza Pahlavi holding the flag of the Lion in the Sun from Iran, and they're all holding it, and it looks like they're protesting basically for the president's help inside of Iran. So it looks like that's the video. And then shortly after that, he posted a video of Frank Sinatra singing "My Way" in it. So I'm not sure if that's some type of coded message or something. It seems like it likely probably is, in my personal opinion. But he's posting stuff basically which could be viewed as maybe trying to drum up support for a action against Iran, perhaps, maybe a ground action, maybe. But we'll have to see. But that is the news.
Well, on that note, that's interesting to hear. We'll have to see all that pans out. And with that, it is time for us to get on out of our news segment and on into our question segment. We also did get to see a new satellite photo of Korg Island right here. Nothing really to report on.
Harg Island?
Yarg Island. It's a pirate island. Yarg.
Oh man, look at that right there. Honestly though, looking at that from satellite view right there, it's like, can you imagine the Marines doing like amphibious landings on this island right here? I mean, look at how small that island is. Such a concentrated little area like that. Yes, it would be nice to have it. Like that would be a strategic victory for the United States when it comes to controlling 90% of Iran's oil exports. But could you imagine though, like the drones just hammering the hell out of this island right here if the U.S. actually landed on it? That would be something horrible.
Yeah, it would be. I think that's why we ought to just destroy the oil loading piers and just leave that island alone instead of trying to physically take it. We should just deny Iran's ability to actually utilize the island instead of trying to physically control it. That wouldn't really be that good of an idea right now. But with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. I think that the Strait of Hormuz is a much more pressing matter than taking the little oil island, considering that we still wouldn't be able to do anything with the oil island because the Strait of Hormuz isn't even opened yet. So I feel like we ought to just deal with the priorities first, folks. Instead of trying to be such a 5D chess player that we trip over our own feet and break our teeth by tripping and falling onto a concrete curb, maybe we ought to just clear the Strait of Hormuz, and deal with a situation that is the most direct and obvious one, at least right now. It's kind of like saying, folks, that I'm running out of money because I don't have a job, but instead of just going and getting a job so I can make money and stop running out of it, I'm instead going to go pull my teeth out under a bridge, because that might fix the situation as to not having enough money. It's like, well, how in the world does that really get around to getting us money? You know what I mean? Like, that's not really directly fixing the problem we have. That's just going and doing something else entirely different. But anyways, it is time for us to move on into this question segment. And boy, folks, we got a lot of questions. And I also got to say that we're massively appreciative of so many of y'all watching tonight. We had 23,000 people here at the peak. Just had to make sure. And 160,000 people have watched this stream in about 2 hours. I got to say that we're entirely honored and greatly appreciative of so many of y'all enjoying this channel. And I hope that y'all been able to find our news coverage to be of sound quality and of good analysis tonight. It is time for us to move on into the rest of our news for the night. But before we move on into it, I do have to thank you all so much once again. And actually, we're not moving into the news. We're moving on to the questions. I just realized right there. But I do have to thank you all so much once again. And without further ado, Matthew, please take it away.
All right. So right now we have no more breaking news to cover, at least for right this second. We will keep scanning for it. And if there is something to cover, we will break from the question segment to cover that breaking news. But in the meantime, though, jumping into our super chats and getting our live chat questions after that, our first super chat, the last segment, is going to go to Ken Shearback. And thank you very much, Ken, for that $50 support and helping to keep the channel running with that support. He said, here's some funds for the Costco chicken and coffee, and take one from the chat.
And I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I do have to say that I thank you greatly for the Costco Chicken Fund. Look at that chicken.
Oh, yes. I remember what was in the plastic. Yeah, there it is right there in the bucket. I remember what was in the bucket right there. Then they moved to the bags. I wish they still sold it in the bucket, honestly. Like, the bag is just not the same thing. But I guess they're trying to cut down their cost, possibly, maybe. But the bag just doesn't hit the same way as the bucket.
Man. Bucket. But I gotta say, thank you so much for the incredible Costco chicken support. We love Costco chickens. I love them. Matthew loves them. And I love coffee too. I drink my coffee black. It's easy to do it that way. It's cheap and, it doesn't cost a whole lot. Because, folks, like all those financial advisors say, if you just stop buying Starbucks every day, maybe one day you would be able to buy the $800,000 starter house because clearly, not spending $7 a day for 365 days or, even 2 years, that's definitely going to help you save up enough money to put down a down payment on a $800,000 house, which is a starting house these days. But a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to none other than Truster1. And thank you very much, Truster, for that $50 support. And I think he sadly already left for the night. But if he's hearing this tomorrow, we do appreciate that. And Truster said simply, corgis.
Hey, and everybody loves a corgi. Everybody loves corgis. Corgis are wonderful and incredible dogs. You got to love them a great deal. And I got to thank you incredibly for the support, Truster1, and helping this channel to keep on running and making this thing possible. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing rolling. We wouldn't be able to make this thing a reality. We wouldn't be able to keep this thing running day to day. And I got to thank you so much once again. And you know something, folks, on the way home today, we actually saw something that I never thought would blow me away until I saw it in person, folks. And it was something magical. On the side of the road, there were some people selling puppies. And they were none other than Samoyed puppies. Look at them.
Oh, Smiling Sammy, they call him.
Look at that thing. They literally looked like that in real life, too. Just like it. I was like, oh my god. I was like, look, there's Samoyed puppies. Holy moly. I was like, those things are freaking cute. And then the grown-up Samoyeds.
Those things are bad as huskies, by the way. Those things are escape artists.
Yeah, that's why I wouldn't ever really want one. But they're still super cute. I mean, look at those little Samoyeds. But I do have to tell you all that Pembroke Corgis are also absolutely tremendous. Look at them. Look at these sweet creatures. The amazing.
These are much more manageable because they're short, stumpy legs. They're a lot more manageable because they really just can't like destroy your house or something like that if they wanted to. Like the best they could do is maybe jump the couch, and that's about it.
Man, really, honestly, that's true. And you can see all the different colors that corgis come in here. We have the fawn color, which I think is a fairly rare one. I've never seen one of those before. You have the tricolor, which is incredibly common and honestly really cool looking. Then you have the red and white, which is the traditional. I don't know what that one is. I think it's called sable, like a sable colored corgi. And then you have a different variant of tricolor. I don't know what that one's... It's apparently something headed tricolor, or red-headed tricolor. But the most common of the tricolors you'll see is the black-headed tricolor right here. But still, I love corgis a whole lot. Corgis are amazing dogs. Some of the best out there. Intelligent, relatable, very cute, very fluffy. They're great dogs. Some of the best. Best well-rounded dog breed in America, in my opinion. Amazing. But a huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a $30 support from none other than Marion Deemer. And thank you very much, Marion, for that 30. And Marion said, no words. I have no words. And also, is that somebody's name at the end? Like, who is this?
1 second. Let me see here. Oh, it looks to be some sort of a champagne.
Who's that?
Oh, it's not a someone, it's a drink.
Oh, champagne. Oh, man, what the hell you just call it?
I called it champagne.
It's wild.
Man, I did that deliberately. I know.
Okay, I was about to say, geez, man. I thought you were naming somebody off.
Man, look, it says fragile. Dude, I'd like, folks, I do that sometimes to mispronounce words really badly to get a kick out of folks because people, oh, you idiot. And honestly, it's kind of funny to do, and I like mispronouncing the words for the hell of it. Like, I call pizza wizza in my free time for the hell of it, really. But beyond that, I'm guessing that's specifically what Marion Deemer is speaking of, because when I typed it in, this is what I got. A Piper Heidsieck, if that's how it's pronounced, which is a champagne. And I gotta say, a big thanks to you for support, Marion Deemer. I'm personally not a drinker myself. I don't drink really at all, folks. I have tried... Huh?
How do you live?
Oh, no, well, I drink water, but not alcohol.
Ah, I see. He's not an alcoholic.
I don't drink, Matthew. I hydrate. We are not the same. Like it's a big difference. Matthew doesn't drink, by the way, either. By the way, folks, I'm not insinuating that he does drink, but I'm just not one for drinking. Me personally, Marion Deemer. Some people are. I have tried to drink some stuff here and there. Recently, I got a little pack of from Costco. It was Irish beers. I think it was like Guinness and a couple of others. And I just couldn't really drink it. I was just like, I don't really have an interest in it. I don't really like feeling buzzed really either. I don't find it to be fun really. So I've just never really been one for drinking. But they did come out with another medical study. I think it just came out yesterday, Matthew, where some medical group did a study and stated that the only healthy alcohol to drink is wine, but in moderation. Like obviously not like swimming and the stuff. So there you have it,
Is
folks.
that the excuse they're using these days? See, it's healthy for you. The doc told me.
You see, you see, everybody, I'm not actually struggling with an alcohol addiction. My doctor gave me this prescription of 5 bottles of beer, or more so 5 bottles of Hennessy every day. That's really what works. But beyond that, I thank you so much for the support. It's just that I don't drink with this stuff. I just don't drink this stuff, you see. But a big thanks to you for the support, and how about this channel keep running? And someone's about to be like, are you Latter-day Saints? No, I just don't drink. Like, there has been some times, folks, where I have actually drank, and if I was in a social setting where everyone was drinking, I could have like a rum and coke or something, but I just don't really see the appeal in drinking, really. Like especially drinking until you're blue in the face. I just don't see it. But a big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 20 from Scoobs, and thank you, Scoobs, for that $20 support as well. They said, time to get the super chat started and have a good stream in LOC.
And thank you so much, Scoobs, for the support. And thank you so much for starting off all the super chats. And it's been a fairly good stream. I've been quite happy with the stream, and I hope that everyone else has been quite pleased and satisfied as well. And so a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that it's addressed that incredibly well. And long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will never truly die. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 20 from none other than Zyper Sniper 1. And thank you very much, Mr. Zyper, for that $20 support. He said, coffee fun for the enforcers. And have you ever heard about the upcoming game called Polaris? It's a game where you play as an engineer and polar explorer on the border between Norway and Russia. And question to the chat, please. Is that new Call of Duty game?
No, but this looks cool. I mean, look at it.
Oh, is it a FPS?
It's a post-nuclear Arctic survival game. Oh, that's
post-nuclear.
I don't know if this.
Oh my gosh, the graphics were looking good until I saw the polar bear.
Oh, it's looking better there.
It's looking somewhat better. Why does it look like it's doing like a political sign or something? Like it looks like
it's like it's like whoa.
Trying to make a political statement here, man. Everything's getting political, even the bears.
Oh my God, Matthew, they were right. They really did escape to Antarctica after the war, didn't they? Oh man, but it looks like a pretty interesting game, honestly. Like I would actually give this a look because I like survival games and I kind of like outdoor games, folks. I also like going out into the outdoors and touching the grass and all, but I also like playing the outdoor games when I'm at home not touching grass. And so I'll actually have to look into this one because it looks interesting to me. I've never heard of this actually. This is the first time I've heard of this Zyper Sniper.
Yeah, I like to go outside and actually wrestle the bears in real life. We got the bears over here in the mountains out here in our little area, so I've never seen one out here. But I did hear, though, that up in Alaska, apparently some servicemen got mauled by a brown bear, apparently during a training exercise. They whipped out the bear spray, and apparently that wasn't good enough. Apparently the bear came after them anyway, from the sounds of it. So what were you saying that they apparently parachuted down on the bears or something? Like they literally landed on the bear?
So from what I heard, folks, to give you all the story that I got so far, and there might be some caveats that some of this might not be true, but this is what I've been hearing so far, is that the 10th Mountain Division of the U.S. Army was doing jump training today up in Alaska because that's where they're from. And while and some people are like, wait a minute, there's an airborne division? It's not really airborne. It's not like the 82nd Airborne Division where all of its brigades are jump trained. Only one brigade in the 10th is jump trained, and it's not even a full strength division. It's just a division on paper, but it's more so, if we were to say anything, I mean, maybe, hell, I'm trying to think of what it would be. Well, I guess technically it is a division. But anyways, the one brigade that they have that is jump trained was doing some jumps today. And apparently at the field that they were dropping these guys at, some of them landed pretty much on top of a grizzly.
Grizzly?
Yeah, it was a grizzly, wasn't it?
No, I said it was a brown bear.
Oh.
I think, man, if they landed on a grizzly, they'd probably not be alive.
So they landed on a brown bear. Sorry about that, folks. I said grizzly for no reason there, but they landed on top of a brown bear basically, and they were like, oh, and so they whipped out their bear spray, sprayed in the face, and instead of the bear going instead it said, "All right, now you done pissed me off." And then it just went and started apparently attacking them before the bear spray really got in its eyes, and then went and then it ran away. So we understand that they're both in a hospital getting treated. We don't know the extent of their injuries, but once again, folks, like that's why I'm not like a huge fan of the bear spray stuff. Because there was a second there can be a little bit of a while before that stuff really takes effect and they start running away and panicking. And that it might just piss them off in the meantime. That's why I'm more of a fan of, like, if it's a situation like that, it might be best to have a rifle, you know? And also,
if I see people saying brown bears are grizzlies,
so I did get it right.
The article I was reading earlier about it was making it seem like brown bears was completely different from grizzlies. Like, that was my understanding. I mean, I guess maybe they are the same. At least people in the chat are claiming they're the same.
It is. So I was right in saying grizzly. So they did land on top of a grizzly, basically.
Damn, well, that explains why. I mean, I've heard that the grizzlies are extremely dangerous. So if that's what a brown bear is, then, you know, that no wonder it attacked them. Also, by the way, could you imagine landing on top of those bastards? Like, holy crap. Like, you're basically landing on a murder machine. Like, you're in some deep trouble.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's terrifying stuff to basically fall on top of a grizzly. And I see some people saying they are and they're not. I just Googled it and they said that brown bears are grizzlies. So I'm just taking that at face value at this point because that's what, like, I heard earlier that it was a grizzly and then Matthew was like, it was a brown bear. And I was like, oh, well, maybe there's a difference. But from what I could Google, it doesn't look like it. So I'll just work off of that for now until we get something else. But anyways, pretty concerning sort of a thing though to land on top of a bear basically. Hopefully they're all right. They are stating that they're not sharing the exact condition of the service members that are in a hospital being treated right now with the public yet because next of kin hasn't been notified. But once next of kin has been notified, we might be able to know the extent of what happened. But it sounds like they're both going to live, so they've got a hell of a story to tell no matter what. I mean, they basically landed on top of a brown bear or a grizzly or whatnot and sprayed it in the face, got attacked, and survived, which, you know, in those sorts of instances is actually quite exceptional. So, you know, really crazy sort of an occurrence. But that's all, like, I was literally just telling Matthew, folks, Matthew was like, oh, I get the bear spray, you know? And I was like, I wouldn't trust bear spray. Like, I was like, you know, if you get in a situation with a bear, in Utah, we don't have grizzlies or brown bears, we just have black bears. But it's like, if you get in a situation where the bear feels threatened and you have to spray with that thing, it might just piss it off for a little bit and it might attack you before it goes into effect and runs away. And I was like, that's why I would generally more so like carry the bear spray, but also have a higher powered rifle on standby as well, because you never know, you know, it's like the bear spray might not really work on it quick enough. And I don't want to be at the mercy of a bear if that happened.
Well, we have black bears out here in Utah. Like those are more skittish bears. They aren't like killers. Like they can be, but they're not like normally that way. At least if they don't have like cubs with them or something. But also, by the way, apparently both me and Andrew are kind of halfway right. Grizzlies are a subspecies of brown bear. They say the grizzly bear, also known as the North American brown bear or simply grizzly. Simply grizzly. I guess that's another name for it. But,
bro, that sounds like shampoo. Simply grizzly.
So that's that simply grizzly. I guess that's different than grizzly. This is getting confusing as hell at this point. But they said grizzlies are a subspecies of brown bear. So apparently it is slightly different, but they're both brown. But a grizzly is apparently extra grizzly, I guess, or something. I don't know. All I know is that's a bad bastard. If you run across a grizzly, you're in some deep trouble. That's all I've ever heard.
Hold up, wait a minute. I think I'm about to get our answer here. Because it looks like brown bears is like the international umbrella that they all fall under, but it looks like the only brown bear that might be in America is a grizzly, maybe. And I'm trying to make sure, folks, because I've heard such things as, you know, black bear, brown bear, and grizzly, and then polar bear, and those have been the four groups that I generally know of. But let me check. Let's see. Hold up. I mean, you know, for that to be a brown bear, that sure as hell looks like the grizzly to me. I mean, that's the grizzly.
Well, yeah, but they're both brown, but the grizzly is a different type. Like it's like a more aggressive type. See, it says right there, it says, what do brown bears eat? And then it says right there, it says grizzly bear in Yellowstone. So they're calling them different.
So actually no, they say like here this is the National Park Service's publication, by the way, folks, on their website about brown bears. They state brown bears, also known as grizzly bears, can be found in many of our national parks. The name grizzly usually refers to bears living inland away from the coast, while bears of the same species might look similar. Everything from their size, coloring, and diet and sleeping patterns depend on the bear's location. For example, a bear's diet varies depending on what foods are available during specific seasons and specific regions. Let's take a look at the two different brown bears, a grizzly bear and an Alaskan brown bear. Okay, so actually there is
I am
difference.
right.
Yeah, so you are right. So it was a brown bear up there, but apparently the ones down here, like in Yellowstone and whatnot, they're apparently grizzlies, but they're basically the same thing, I guess.
Yeah, so it turns out there are two. It is a subspecies of the bear. So apparently there is a grizzly and there is a brown bear, and there's the two different articles about it right there. Man, you were not scrolling down just a little bit extra where it said Alaskan brown bear. Like it was just right there. But we don't have to deal with either one of those killers. Like we have the black bear out here. So
Oh.
it's a lot cooler that way.
Actually, the Alaskan brown bear is worse than the grizzly because it actually says Alaskan brown bears are the largest brown bears, so they're bigger than the grizzly, so they're actually worse to run into.
Yeah, I don't want to run across any bear really, but if I had to run across one, like I could probably I think I could deal with the black bear a little bit better. It's just not as aggressive. But the grizzlies, like I think they hunt people. Like they're not afraid to come after somebody. The black bear doesn't really want to encounter people for the most part. So if it sees you or hears a loud sound, most of the time probably runs off.
You know, some people say that this thing looks fluffy. It does, but crazily enough, folks, from people that I've heard or read about that have been near these things, they always say that they smell like absolute rancid garbage, like truly, like because they don't bathe or clean, so it's just built up
Nasty.
reek. So pretty nasty smelling animals, but they do look cute too. Well, this one certainly doesn't look cute, but this one down here looks kind of cute.
Yeah, that thing looks like as cute as Jeffrey Dahmer up there at the top. Like, go back up to that thing. Look at that. Yeah, that right there. That's a face only the mother bear could love right there. That thing looks vicious as hell.
Man, let's see here. About 3 to 5 feet high at the shoulder. That's pretty high. Like, and a 5 to 7 feet. Well, 5 to 7 feet in length. Very large brown bears can measure almost 9 feet tall when standing on their hind legs. Basically, if you get in a confrontation with one of those, a normal person would not be able to survive. I don't even think Mike Tyson in his prime would survive this serial killing machine right here. Apparently, they can range from 2,000 to 1,000 pounds, depending on the sex, location, and season. Their average lifespan is 15 to 25 years, which will probably be the average lifespan of our generation. And did you know, when laying down to rest, Alaskan brown bears dig belly holes to accommodate their food-filled bellies. The bigger the belly, the bigger the hole. Well, that's interesting news. Did you also know these things will kill you? Like, did you also know that? Fun fact about them, they will. But anyways, it is time for us to move on from these bears. Staying safe around bears, what are the recommendations? If I was the person in that picture, I'd be panicking right now. I really would.
They had to Photoshop that in. There's no way that person was standing there with a cameraman behind them with that thing walking toward them like that.
Oh, no, this is a real picture. A bear approaches a visitor along a road at Brooks Camp in Katmai National Park and Preserve in Alaska. So no, that's a real picture.
It's crazy.
What should I do if I see a bear? Just seeing a bear in the wild is a special treat. I wouldn't call it that. Let's see.
It's a special treat for the bear.
Yeah, I think that's what the bear calls it, not us. Dude, this article was written by the bears at the national park, man. They got on the National Park Ranger's computer. They're like, seeing a bear is a treat. It is important to remember that bears in national parks are wild and can be dangerous. Their behavior is sometimes unpredictable. Is the president a bear? Anyways, although rare, attacks on humans have occurred, inflicting serious injuries and death. Each bear and each experience is unique. There's no single strategy that will work in all situations, and that guarantees safety. Okay, so we're getting the idea here that these things are quite dangerous. Like, they're like, it's a treat, but these things are basically killing machines. Most bear encounters end without injury. Following some basic guidelines may help to lessen the threat of danger. Avoiding an encounter. Well, that seems to be the smartest one, I think, is just avoiding them altogether. Bear encounters. Identify yourself. That means to show your ID to the bear like you would a police officer. By talking calmly.
Even the bears are law enforcement now. Stop resisting.
Oh, so look, by talking calmly so the bear knows you're a human and not a prey animal, remain still, stand your ground, but slowly wave your arms. Help the bear recognize you as a human. It may come closer or stand on its hind legs to get a better look or smell. A standing bear is usually curious, not threatening. I feel like that's the part where I'd run if it stood up, be like, oh my god! I'd be like, that thing is 9 feet tall! Stay calm. Pick up small children immediately.
Why are you dealing with small children anyway in grizzly country? That's a horrible idea.
Oh man, I can already see it. Oh no, it's a bear! Like quick! Like it's like, no, Herbert, no. But let's see. Hike and travel in
Herbert.
groups. Yeah, you know Herbert from like Family Guy. You know.
Oh yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Make yourselves look as large as possible. For example, move to higher ground. Do not allow the bear to access your food. Getting your food will only encourage the bear and make the problem worse for others. Do not drop your pack, as it can provide protection for your back and prevent a bear from accessing your food.
Bro, if I'm getting attacked by a bear, I'm not worried about the bear getting the food. I'll give the bear the food. I'm just trying to get away from the damn thing. Like when I start fighting for my food, it's like I can get food elsewhere. I can't replace my life.
Man, some national park ranger, when they wrote that, man, imagine you like literally punching the bear in the jaw and yelling, "In the name of the Republic, you shall not get my food!" It's like, what are you supposed to do in that situation? It's like, it's a freaking killing machine. I'm clearly going to give it the food at that point. I don't they might make it tougher for other people to survive this bear, but I got to survive it first for other people to even find the bear. But let's see. If the bear is stationary, move away slowly and sideways. This allows you to keep an eye on the bear and avoid tripping. I was about to say, why in the world sideways?
Hey, man, if a bear is right in front of me, I'm already tripping.
Man, also, do not run. Man, do not climb a tree.
Well, I mean, both grizzlies and black bears can climb trees. Oh, yeah, they can climb it, but I mean, it seems like it'd be a lot harder to get you if you climbed a tree, I think.
Leave the area or take a detour. If this is impossible, wait until the bear moves away. And you always leave the bear an escape route. Be especially cautious if you see a female with cubs. Never place yourself between a mother and her cub, and never attempt to approach them. The chances of an attack escalate greatly if she perceives you as a danger to her cubs. Real respectful, maternal instincts there on the mother bear, and respect that, and don't get near them. Let's see, bear attacks. If you were attacked...
Wait, what's it say about the black bears? Like, what's it say about the black bear specifically?
If you were attacked by a black bear, do not play dead. Try to escape to a secure place, such as a car or building. If escape is not possible, try to fight back using any object available.
Oh, hell no.
Concentrate your kicks and blows on the bear's face and muzzle.
Oh, yeah, I think if I'm in that position, I'm already screwed at this point. If I'm trying to fist fight a black bear, I feel like you're kind of already cooked at that point. Like if this thing's that determined, it's starting to fight, and I'm having to fist fight and throw lefts and jabs and hooks, I think we're in deep trouble.
And then with the brown bears and the grizzly bears, if you were attacked by a brown grizzly bear, leave your pack on and play dead. Lay flat on your stomach with your hands clasped behind your neck. Spread your legs to make it harder for the bear to turn you over. That was sus sounding at the start. I was like, hey, yo. I was like,
yeah, bear.
Man, that bear coming up and going, ain't nothing like a grizzly party. Oh, God. Remain until the bear leaves the area. Fighting back usually increases the intensity of such attacks. However, if the attack persists, fight back vigorously. So basically what this is saying, folks, is that if you are being attacked by a grizzly bear, you're basically dead, so just try and play dead and hope that it'll leave you alone a little bit quicker. Because the alternative is that the thing's still attacking you anyways, and then you're just basically fighting to the death. So if a grizzly attacks you, the chances of death are pretty high. So
I'll tell you what, the Ukrainians was to train those bears, bend them over.
Tell them to spread their legs. It's like, oh,
I'm not following those instructions. Hell no. I'd rather just take the mauling.
If any bear attacks you in your tent or stalks you and then attacks, do not play dead, fight back. This kind of attack is very rare, but can be serious because it often means the bear is looking for food and sees you as prey. So it's hungry and it's not letting you go. Your chances of death are quite high, basically. So fighting back is your only chance, and that might not even work either. So basically, folks, the answer to all bears is to just not get around them. I think that's the answer. And this is also why, folks, like, regardless, like, I respect the wildlife and I do believe in conservation. But if you're in a situation like that, I feel like bear spray would probably do some good, but I feel like the most important thing that could do some good, considering, the whole thing that just happened in Alaska, is maybe, like a 30-06 or something if it came down to it. Because I'm not going to lie, folks, I have respect for wildlife, but if it comes down in between me living and that bear living, I'm choosing myself. Because, I gotta live. Like, I got a self-preservation instinct like every
Self-defense,
person.
man. Self-defense. I mean, if it's about to take you down, I mean, that's self-defense.
Man, I mean, honestly, that's true. Let's see.
Look at that fog, though. That bear spray is something wild. Man, I feel like that if the wind was blowing, that would go right back in your face. All of a sudden, you'd be messed up.
Man, the bear just watches you spasming on the ground. Oh, my eyes! It's like, oh, free food!
Look, it peppered himself. It's tasty.
This one's one of those spicy types. It's really gonna be good. Oh, man. Bear spray has proven to be highly successful at stopping aggressive behavior in bears. Note that it doesn't say it has a 100% chance it's just highly successful. So, there's still the chance, like it did in Alaska today, you fog the thing and then it's angry. It's angrier, but, let's see here. Important thing, it's used, let's see, although it's used in, let's see, bear are not the same. So, it is not a repellent, so do not apply to your body or equipment. Obviously, who the hell would do that?
This makes me lose faith in humanity when I see instructions like they get that stupid like that. Like on lawnmowers, like on the blade like deck and stuff on a lawnmower, they'll say, "Do not put your foot under the blade deck because you're going to get your foot chopped off." It's like, okay. It's like, yeah, okay. And then like the other day when we were hiking up to the lower Bell Canyons Falls, they put on the sign, "Don't jump over the slick, slippery falls. You're going to fall in the water and you're going to drown." It's like, okay. Then they tell you, "Do not apply the bear spray to your body like mosquito repellent is going to burn." It's like, oh my God. It's like, what, do we have to tell people this stuff?
What idiot burned themselves alive, basically, from the Scoville volume on one of those sprays for that to have to be a warning? Someone out there lathered themselves up with this stuff, folks like SPF 500 at some point for that warning to exist.
Man, I don't know. I don't know.
Man, I gotta say, though, humongous respect for the National Park Service, but if I'm in a life or death situation, really, to be honest with you all, if I'm ever going out anywhere where there's a grizzly bear or a black bear, I mean, I'm going to be carrying a rifle because I'm not going to chance it. I'm not going to get mauled out in the middle of nowhere by some bear and, live disfigured the rest of my life or die out there, just to be honest with y'all. I got a survival instinct. The bears ought to know to avoid me because if they don't, there's going to be problems. Like, it's just going to be unavoidable, especially if they're trying to attack me, clearly. But anyways, with that, interesting little side note there about the whole bear attack in Anchorage. But with that, we are on and into the questions. So what do we got, Matthew?
So back to our super chats. This one goes to Chris Feilbach yet again, and he puts in a $50 support. And thank you very much, Chris, for that $50 support. He said, "Bears can climb trees faster than you can run. Also, polar bears are black, not their fur, but etc." And I think that is a deal. Like, here's the catch though: if you're up close to a polar bear though, and you can see like the skin on the polar bear, you are in some deep shit at that point. Like, if you're that close to a polar bear. So I don't know. Like, I think you might be cooked. I've seen videos of polar bears. Those things are probably the most horrifying animal on the planet. Like, they you can look into their eyes. It's like they have no soul at all. Those things are straight up killing machines, basically. But I have seen the bears climb the tree, by the way, and those things are pretty fast, I will say. But yeah, there's the polar bear right there. It's not trying to give you Coca-Cola, by the way. This thing right here is trying to get you. But Enforcer, what say you?
Man, this thing's saying, "You need lidocaine after what I do to your ass." It's like, man, I'd be scared of this thing. I'm telling you, these are the most terrifying bears in the world. Because they actually do hunt people as prey. Like, they're not like other bears where it's like, oh, it's a person. If I'm not like starving, I'm generally going to avoid eating them. Polar bears will actually hunt people down and eat them deliberately, and that's what's terrifying about them. But also, Matty, have you ever seen a furless polar bear?
No, how would they become furless?
I don't know, but that's what they look like, furless.
Oh my God, devilish looking thing straight out of hell. And it better be glad it's got the fur because, I mean, shoo, if these things didn't have fur, my goodness.
Man,
that's like an elephant. The scale on that thing's like an elephant.
Imagine seeing this demon come crawling at you across that. It's like, oh! It's like, oh my God. Man,
what happened to this thing?
I guess the mange? I don't really know.
The mange?
Yeah, you know, they like lose their hair and everything.
Jeez, man, I tell you what, demon-looking creature right there. Can you imagine getting eaten by that? Damn.
Here's a thick one that had its legs shaved.
Man, they got to keep the fur.
Yeah, they got to keep that fur. They don't look right without the fur. But outside of that, though, I mean, they look kind of cute a little, but I know what they're about, and that makes them terrifying. It doesn't matter how cute an animal looks. If you know that they're killing machines, there's nothing in my mind that'll ever make me look at them and be like, oh, look at that. That thing would kill me on the spot. It would kill all y'all on the spot as well. That's why you gotta avoid them if you're around them, which most of y'all shouldn't be because most of y'all don't live in the Arctic Circle. But anyways, I hope that does address that side note well. And that's actually right. Those bears do climb trees quite fast. If y'all have ever seen it, folks, it's like an Olympian going up a tree. Those things can basically sprint up them nearly. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep them running, Chris. And thank you for sharing that little interesting fact about the polar bear so we could talk about it. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 20 from Jocelyn White. And thank you very much, Josh, for that $20 support. And he said, LLT LSA, an amazing news coverage as usual. And thank you for the years of hard work.
And thank you so much for enjoying the hard work over the years and helping this channel to keep on running, Jocelyn White. And long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will never truly die. And so a humongous thanks to you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
We also have a $20 support from Give Up Now, and thank you as well, Give Up Now, for that support. They said duck season. No, it's rabbit season, and it's duck season.
Oh, I know that. For Looney Tunes. Looney Tunes. You remember Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny? It's rabbit season, duck season, rabbit season, duck season, duck season.
I think I do. Season. I think I do.
Yeah, that's a classic right there. A classic. And then, you know, Daffy Duck would get shot in the face by Elmer Fudd, and it would spin his beak around to the back of his head, and then he'd have to grab it and bring it back around to the front to be able to talk.
Those tunes were really loony.
Man, they were so loony. Oh, man, really loony. But a big thanks to you for supporting over this channel to keep it running. Give Up Now. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 20 from Steve T, and thank you, Steve, for that support. He said, do you think in Iran, individual tribes and units are just figuring it out? It seems like the U.S. and Israel action has made life worse for the people of Iran and everyone else.
I would say they're probably just trying to figure it out, but I also had to say that if that's speaking about the Iranian central government, they appear to have some sort of a coordinated roadmap that they're working off of for the larger part. So I have to believe that the central government is still in control of the situation, unlike what some people have been saying that the nation has been fracturing. So I hope that does address that the best I can. And big thanks to you for supporting helping this channel to keep it running. And before we move on to the next one, I just saw Blue2 Swing say, this is my first Enforcer Live. Are bear tangents a regular thing here? LOL. And no, actually, those are called rabbit holes. If you're new to the channel, this is something that a lot of people who are channel regulars will know about, and it's probably the funnest part of the question segment. We do things called rabbit holes, because during the question segment, we will literally bring up anything and everything. We could bring up cities, we could bring up food, history, cars, trains, planes, anything, literally. And tonight, for some reason, we got on bears. I think because of the Anchorage attack, and so we had a rabbit hole on that. And usually we try and bring up, like, interesting facts or talk about interesting stuff about it or make jokes on it. And it's just what the question segment is. And it brings a lot of flavor and uniqueness to our channel, because after the news, you could literally hear about anything, and maybe you hear an interesting fact about something that's not news related at all. And also, rabbit holes are like my signature thing. Like, I've done rabbit holes the whole time this channel has ever existed. And so, you know, you always can expect in the question segment every night, you're at least going to get a couple of interesting rabbit hole discussions. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Greenscan, who puts in a 20 and said, hello, enforcers. 4 Costco chickens on me. Damn. Can you imagine walking out of Costco with 4 chickens? You look like you're rich these days. But they said, take one from the chat. And LLT, LSA.
Man, you're going to get some person writing up an article at some major publication talking about these damn Gen Z kids and their wealth, they're splurging on the chicken.
Man, I'll tell you what, could you imagine like walking out of Costco wearing like the big fur, you know how like the pimps wear like the big fur jacket and walking out with like a Costco, 2 Costco chickens on each arm, like just walking out the store, man, that's when you know someone has made it in 2026.
Yeah, better yet, it's a jacket or a coat that's literally made out of Costco chicken still in the bags just sewn together. Like you're walking out, they're like, damn, that guy's rich. But beyond that, I gotta say a big thanks to your support and helping this channel to keep running, and thank you for the Costco chickens. Also, by the way, Matthew, I don't know if you heard about this today, but you know, I just had to bring this one up, folks, because I don't think I've ever even told Matthew about this one today. But did you hear about the president making a little speech today about the economy and whatnot? and apparently someone pre-wrote the speech for him. He was reading it, and he got to something. It was like, all the people working in the gas stations and the corner stores, and he didn't know what a corner store was. Did you hear that?
I think I saw a clip about it. I think about what the hell's a corner store, who wrote this or something like that. I think I saw that.
Yeah, I was like, damn, I got to say,
It's self-explanatory.
I'm not getting political here, but I mean, you got to be pretty detached and wealthy to the point that you've never been around normal people to not know what a corner store is. I mean, like, it's literally in the name. That's like saying red door. What the hell is a red door? It's like, it's a door that's painted red. Like, it's like very self-explanatory sort of a thing. But I mean, I was like, what the hell? I was like, I've never heard of someone saying, what the hell is a corner store? I mean, like, literally everybody's gone to like a pharmacy, corner store or something like that. It's like, this, like that kind of tells you, folks, for someone who's claiming that they're like the president of the people, it's like, like, if you don't know what a corner store is, you really can't relate to them, can you? But anyways, with that, we're on the next one.
And our next one here is going to go to Crispy, who put in a 20. And thank you very much, Crispy, for that $20 support. At Crispy, $20 support. And we do appreciate that. I don't see a comment, but we do appreciate that once again. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say a big thanks to you for supporting Crispy. And I gotta say that thank you for helping this channel to keep it running. You didn't throw in a comment, but folks like you help to keep this thing crispy. And we greatly appreciate that. Appreciate that well. And so a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. And so a big thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Give Up Now yet again, who put in a 20 and said, LSA times 4, Shay.
Hey! And that's something interesting right there, Shay. Shay is a special type of steam locomotive. Really neat thing right there. But long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die. And I got to thank you greatly for your devotion to the Lee Spring Army and your support of it to help it to keep on running. And so a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And, oh man, look at this, man. Someone said, he's not a people president, he's a leader. What the hell does that mean? What does that mean? What does it mean, man? What does that mean? You can't be a people person and a leader at the same time? What does that mean?
I thought you had to be like, you can't be a leader and get people to do stuff you need them to do for a common goal unless you know people. Like, I mean, what person that doesn't know people is a leader? I mean, that doesn't really work. I don't think that works.
Also, on top of that, it's like, I just got to say this kind of up front. For someone who's elected as the president to say, I know the problems of the common people because I can relate to them, and they don't know what the hell groceries are, and they don't know what a corner store is, then we can kind of get the idea they've lived their entire life with a silver spoon in their mouth as when they were a kid, to the point they don't know anything relatable to the common person, and then when they grew up and became an adult, they have lived such a life of luxury, they still don't know any of that stuff, and they don't know what it is. Like, that generally lets you kind of know that if they're going to be making decisions that affect the common citizen and their bottom line, they don't even know what the bottom line of the common citizen is. So I don't know what, like to be a leader, especially of a federal republic and a democracy like ours, you kind of have to be able to relate to most common citizens and at least be able to put yourself in their shoes and what would be good for them.
At least you got to be able to fake it, at least, because it's weird. Like, and it's not just unique to one politician, by the way. They all like try to pretend like they basically code switch wherever they go around. Like, if they're in some place like in the South, all of a sudden they're like, yeah, I used to work outside with the wrench all day. It's like, come on. It's like you grew up in New York. It's like, what are you talking about? You didn't work outside with the wrench all day on the tractor. It's like, who are you playing? And then they go out west and they're like, yeah, I remember with my father, I used to come out here digging for gold. It's like, you're from New York. It's like you were out here digging for gold. It's like you're in the city. You don't know anything about gold. The only gold you've seen is in the jewelry store. And it's like they all do that. It's like you can't be everything. And then you have the worst ones that pretend like they're Appalachian or something. And then it's like you're not even really Appalachian. It's like, come on, you're not even really Appalachian. It's like, why the phoniness? It's like I would like these people a lot more if they would simply just admit what the hell they are instead of trying to play this game. But they're trying to appeal to they're honestly, I hate to say this, but they're trying to appeal to the people that aren't very bright, to be perfectly honest. The ones that will just take that stuff and run with it. Like, oh, he's one of us. It's like, come on. It's like you can look at him for like 5 seconds and know he's not one of us. Like you can tell, like just by the way he's talking, that he's not. It's like you got to look a little deeper.
And the pandering, folks, has gotten so bad over the past several years. Like, you remember, Matthew, in 2016 in that election when like Hillary went to the South and she put on like the whole like redneck accent and like that sort of thing. It's like, Jesus, it's like you're from Arkansas. You don't have that accent. It's like yeah, Arkansas is in the South, but you've never had that accent. Where the hell did that come from? You know, it's like, well, I gotta tell you, it's like, you don't talk like that. It's like, just talk normally. That's who you are. Like, you don't have to code switch everywhere you go. Like if I run on a campaign, folks, and I go campaign in Nebraska, y'all aren't gonna hear me going, oh, you betcha. Because I'm not from there. Like, I've never used those words before. I'm gonna be saying y'all to them and everything else because that's where I came from.
Yeah, I would agree. You know, you don't have to do all these garbage truck stunts, the McDonald's stunts, and all that stuff like that. You know, it's funny that they actually admitted those were stunts the other day and said they were kind of cringy. Like, I'm like, that's kind of weird to do the stunt and then call it cringy, which is the stunt that you did. It's kind of a weird thing to do.
Yeah, kind of. You know, also on top of that, it's like, you know, kind of the optics is like, you know, supposedly the woman who did the DoorDash thing or whatever it was apparently doing that to pay for. Well, I mean, that's what they're saying out there, you know. But anyways, outside of that, I would have to say, folks, that like I've never heard someone say, oh, you don't have to relate to the people to you know, understand the people. Is like, well, you kind of got to relate to them a little bit. Like, I can tell you all that, you know, back in the day before we ran this channel, I mean, Matthew and me were working normal jobs, you know, like, you know, being servers at a restaurant or a cashier or something. Like, I understand those jobs. We did them for long enough to get them. You know, it's like, you know, so if it ever came out in the future, like, yeah, I get that thing, and it sucks. Like, it's not fun. The customers are assholes. Management doesn't care about you. They don't give a shit. The schedule's crummy. The pay's not great. I get it. So, you know, it's like when people tell me that sucks, I'd be like, hell yeah, it does. I was there once. It wasn't fun. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on and into the next one.
And our next one goes to DWRB, who puts in a 20. And thank you as well for that support. They said, evening, enforcers, and able to join in tonight in my normal off-duty time, unlike last night, where I missed the whole stream and had to deal with a hot wheel accident on the train and almost got 2 hours of overtime. LSA.
Oh, and that was hot boxes, I tell you. That's always never a fun one. I've always heard about those. Those were a big thing back in the day on the railroads. But I do thank you incredibly for the support, and I'm happy that you were able to make it here on time tonight. And I got to thank you so much for the support and help with this channel to keep it running. And of course, long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will never truly die. And so a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also had a 10 from Josh Lacey, and thank you, Josh, for that $10 support. They said, when I was a little kid, my parents wouldn't let me salute the flag. Now I do so with relish. Thanks for what you guys do.
And I got to thank you so much for the support. And I got to say, it's always a great and incredible thing to be able to respect the country. I respect the country a great deal. An incredible deal. That's why here on this channel we're always talking about how to do things better, because I always think that the country should be doing better. And so a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible and keep this thing running. And so a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on and into the next one.
Also, by the way, I will admit, I forgot to grab the live chat question for Zyper Sniper's super chat earlier. So we're going to return back to it, and we're going to grab that live chat question in honor of Zyper Sniper 1. And he said, or actually, the live chat question says, from Robin, Russia and China back Iran. So why are they not considered terrorists backing countries?
Well, because technically they're not directly supporting them. They're supporting a country that supports terrorists, but it doesn't directly affiliate them with the terrorists. Like, China is the one that's directly commanding and supplying Hezbollah and Hamas, so that removes them from a step. Because back in the day, the U.S. used to fund the Contras, which basically were a terrorist force down in Nicaragua, and that technically would make us kind of like a terrorist supporting country. But like, say if Britain has a relationship with us here in the United States, that doesn't make them a terrorist country, because they're kind of affiliated with a country that would be supporting some sort of a terrorist group at that point. So you know, generally That's kind of how it works. Like that's the best way I can explain. It doesn't really make a lot of sense when you think about it. Like that question, it kind of brings up the absurdity of the sort of logic there. But that's generally how it's always worked. Is that if you're one step removed, like China would be, then you're not technically supporting terrorists in a terrorist state for that matter. But huge thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. And so with that, we are on and into the next one.
We also have a 10 from Ian Mitson, and he said, in the beginning, I was like, why am I staring at a map for 3 hours? Where is the guy who's talking? Are there two guys talking? This is weird, but now I can't wait for the show to start. LOT, LSA.
I gotta thank you so much for the support. And I personally, I just don't like to, I don't like to show my face. I just don't like to that much. So that's why we've never ever done like the whole video thing. And also on top of that, I feel like it starts to become a react channel almost at that point instead of like actual news coverage. So that's also been a big point of not doing that as well. But yeah, and also we kind of sound similar enough that so a lot of people think that it's actually one schizophrenic person talking to themselves for like 3 hours, but there's actually two people here. Matthew's a totally different person than me, and I'm my own person. We're brothers, so that's kind of the crazy thing about it. That a lot of people kind of learn after a little while of being here. But I gotta thank you incredibly for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and I thank you for looking forward to the show now and supporting it so we can keep this thing on air and running. And so with that, a big thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Pacific Fruit Express, who puts in a 10. And thank you as well for that support. He said, obviously, we are in a war. Skip to the last chapter. Everybody gets an A. No more stress about exams. Let's party.
And I gotta thank you so much for the support. And I gotta say, it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing to know that we...
What, the war?
No, that we can just skip forward and party, like Pacific Fruit Express is saying. Man, you're really trying to put words in my mouth right there. I was like, it's a wonderful thing that we're all going to die. It's like, no, not that.
Like, so the first thing he said was, obviously, we're in a war. Skip to the last chapter. He said, well, that's a really good thing. I was like, what? I was like, wait a minute, what?
Man, shit. I mean, like, really gonna get me clipped on that one. But beyond that, a big thanks to you for support. I suppose that we could just skip ahead and party, and maybe, I mean, you know, I don't think it would hurt that much at the moment right now. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Game Theory, and thank you, Game Theory, for that support. They said, did you visit the IRS Service Center 2 in Ogden? It's quite a sight. And hell no, hell no. I don't find those to be nice attractions right there. Good on those people that work there, but I don't find that to be any attraction I'm interested in.
Bro, it's right by the front runner station. It's literally across the street. There it is.
Yeah, that's where you mail all the stuff to for like a lot of taxpayers in the country. They mail it right here.
Oh my God, look at the review. It's just a 1.5 star. My mother is let's see. I don't understand how that comes into filing a tax form, like really. Let's see. We need to talk to an agent. Okay, let's see.
They are hard to get on the phone, I will admit.
Yeah,
very hard to get on the phone. But it's not Ogden's fault though, it's just the whole system.
Also, I like this one person. They were just honest. They put a 1 star and said, I don't like paying taxes. Me too, buddy. Me too, but it's a civic duty, so it's also the law. So you have to do it. But that's crazy. I never knew that, Matthew. The literal IRS headquarters is literally just across the street. How did I not notice that? Like, I feel like I've noticed that at some point and just relearned that right now. There's the front runner. Huh. It's, wow, this place looks a lot different now because, oh, there's that little rail car thing right there. Well, how the hell did I never notice the IRS? Huh, well, you really can't see it from here, I guess. So that's why I guess I never noticed that. But that's wild. That's crazy. It's right freaking there. I've walked by that thing like maybe like 8 times at this point. I never knew that all my returns are literally being mailed there. Weird. And also it's really small to think that that's handling like basically everyone's federal income returns in the country.
Yeah, that is.
That's weird. Like, I wonder how they handle. Anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on and into the next one. But a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running.
Indeed. And we also have another 10 from Game Theory who said, charge and hire security. You need to do a fan meetup. And the event will pay for security. Unfortunately, security, you can have security and something bad can still happen. Unfortunately, the America saw that not too long ago. Actually, unfortunately, out here in Utah, which is where that bad event happened. So, the security can't stop a determined lunatic. That's the thing. Like, if somebody is really determined, you really can't stop somebody like that. You just got to kind of, be very cautious about, what you're exposing yourself to, basically. So, I don't know, like that, like, when we run across a fan by random chance, like today, that's perfectly fine because obviously we weren't announcing that we were going to be there, so it wasn't like somebody with nefarious intent could show up. But if you go and announce like an event, you're giving somebody a lot of notice that you're going to be somewhere, and that's when things can get ugly, at least in my opinion. But Enforcer, what say you?
Yeah, and it doesn't like it's not just the risk of having someone try and shoot us, which is like one of our primary concerns, because there are a lot of nuts out there. And I mean, there's a lot of extreme hard right people who think that we're hard left and want to hurt us because of that. And there's a lot of people on the extreme left who think that we're hard right and want to hurt us over that. So, we got the political nuts from both ends that have threatened us over the years. And then we also have a whole bunch of other people like the hot dog man lunatics, which still hate watch. Even though that guy's basically quit YouTube at this point. And we've got and then also there's a whole bunch of other groups as well that just hate our guts and stuff. And it's not necessarily about getting shot. It's just about like if someone comes up in my face and starts screaming at me with a phone out, I'm going to tell y'all that's not going to go well. And in all those sorts of things right there would start to really become issues and risks because we would probably, like, due to the threat of, assassination, we probably have to get armed security, which would be incredibly expensive because they have to have special sorts of certifications, waivers, and whatnot, and those sorts of security are very expensive because it's hard to get those certifications and waivers and all that. And then that would be quite expensive. And then we would also have to have some sort of pre-screening and all that. And it's a whole lot to do, unfortunately, just to try and avoid, like, the few nut jobs that would probably come running out of the woodwork to ruin a really cool event for thousands of people. So that's a tough one. Like, I would love to do it because I'm a big people person. I like to meet people and say hello to them and stuff and chit chat. And a lot of people who have been able to run into me are always like, "Hey, it was really cool to meet him and everything, and it was a really neat honor and all that." And I like to meet people and talk to them, especially folks that enjoy the channel. It's just that it would be really hard to logistically do that, sadly, because of the few people with bad intentions that would try and ruin the whole thing in some way, shape, or form. So I do thank you so much for the support. And if you ever run up into us in person by accident, don't feel afraid, folks, to ever walk up and be like, "Oh my God, it's the Enforcer." We're probably more honored to meet you than you are to meet us. Like we're just incredibly happy to know that people enjoy the channel and want to let us know. So never feel like concerned that if you approach us, I'm gonna be like, "Ugh, look at you!" Like I'm never gonna do that. I'm like, "Oh, hello, nice to meet you." But yeah, I don't think we'll ever.
Just the only request that I will say is if someone does recognize us in public, just don't run up really fast and then also reach into your pocket and pull your phone out and then point it at us. Like, please don't do that because you'll give me a heart attack.
If you want to side on us though for 30 seconds or so, that's totally fine. Everybody does that because everybody has to make sure that we're us before they talk to us because we're like, "Is that really them?" Because nobody wants to come off as crazy. It's like, "Hey, you're the Enforcer," and then they're like, "Who are you?" Like, that would be kind of awkward. So if you have to take a minute to like figure out whether it's us or not, that's totally fine. And approaching us is totally fine too because I'm always very happy and elated to meet any fans. So with that, I hope that does address that well. Big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
I also have a 10 from Music Uploader who said, "LSA, and every single global shift in destabilization has come from USSR Russia in the last 70 years. And if it wasn't for the superior general, he said, I mean the communists, then none of this world would be going on."
And I thank you so much for the support. And that's a very interesting outlook, Music Uploader, and I'll have to look into that and research that a little bit. But a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, it is time for us to move on and into the next one. Also, I see some people in the chat before we move on. They're talking about which group is more violent. Is it the hard right or the hard?
Just want to address that.
Oh, I'm going to address it because it's a fairly neutral statement. It's both, actually, because I think that over the span of time that we've been running this channel, we've gotten in terms of like the period of time that the threats come in on, we've gotten the same amount of threats from people on the hard right as we have people on the hard left. Might not believe it for some people, because some people, depending on the political climate, like if a Democrat's the president, then they want to say we're a Republican, and if a Republican's in charge, then people want to say we're a Democrat, because we don't pick a side and we criticize everyone. But we have gotten enough death threats over the years from everyone over everything. We've been told that we're George Soros funded lizard people and we must die, and then we've been told that we're, hard right MAGA Nazi people and we must die or something, which I don't even know where people make these claims from. And now recently we've been, whatever it is, like the TDS snowflakes and whatever, we must die, and the threats come in all the time, and it's like these people don't even know what we are. They just know that we don't agree 100% with whatever cult worship they're involved in, so we're some sort of an enemy that must die. That's basically where the threats all originate from, is that kind of mindset. And the honest answer is both. So if you're ever trying to say, no, actually it's that side that's more violent, you're actually wrong. It's both sides, and it is a horrendous thing, because there's a lot of unintelligent, angry, and violent people out there who really make their entire life about that, and it's a tragedy for them and a tragedy for us, because we can't interact with y'all because of those people. But with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Play Street Fighter, who said the highest probability baseline scenario is Russia remaining intact as a centralized state with slow growth, increasing resource dependence, and demographic pressures that reduce long-term dynamicism.
You're actually correct on that, Play Street Fighter. That is one of the more likely ones. Like, a lot of people always say, Russia's going to shatter into a million pieces. That's not going to happen, because financially it just wouldn't work for whatever regions we want to separate, at least the larger ones like Siberia and whatnot. They're going to remain intact. They're going to have very slow economic growth. They're going to be economically non-existent after this war, probably, and it's going to be a very, very slow rebuilding. And also, we're probably going to see that militarily they become insignificant outside of their nuclear weaponry. I mean, insignificant to the point their only defense is nuclear weaponry, and that's it. The military would never even stand a chance, most likely. So I hope that does address that the best I can, and big thanks to you so much for the support and help this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a $10 support from Otani, who put in a 10 and said, great updates as always. And how do you assess the current situation in Transnistria? And there are reports of Russia attempting to increase presence, but capabilities seem limited in their opinion. And any significant news?
Currently the situation in Transnistria is not really that big of an issue. The Ukrainians have actually blockaded, well, not really blockaded, but heavily fortified their border with Transnistria, and have kept a small amount of brigades present there, so that way if anything ever was attempted, they'd be able to crush it pretty fast. And currently the Moldovans have also started to put more significant pressure on that exclave, so for that reason, Transnistria doesn't really serve that much of a strategic threat to either the Republic of Moldova or the state of Ukraine. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, as far as significant news, we haven't really gotten any from Transnistria recently. It's been very uneventful and quiet within that area right now. So a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Maurice Sparks, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Maurice, for that support. They said, my friend's 3-year-old daughter is cracking up so hard listening to you guys. She laughs the hardest when Andrew laughs, and my sides hurt so bad laughing at her, laughing at you guys. LT, LSA.
I gotta thank you so much for support, and I laugh like in some of the craziest ways sometimes. Like I actually laugh though. Like some people like fake laugh, like some actors do. They'll be like, oh, or some people like billionaires, oh. But I like to give like a legitimate laugh. I don't have one of those rich people laughs yet, at least. But big thanks to your support, and I hope this channel to keep it running. And I hope that does address that incredibly well. And long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will never die. And I'm always happy to give some people some good laughs. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Myvory, and thank you for that support as well. They said, do you think this war will be done before June? Are you talking about the Iran war, or are you talking about the Ukraine war?
Or are you talking about the war in Sudan? Or are you talking about the war in Yemen? Or are you talking about the war in Lebanon? Or are you talking about the war in Mexico?
Are you talking about the World War? You think the World War, maybe? I think they're asking mainly about the Iran war, I would assume. I don't think it's going to be done by June. I don't think so.
I don't think any of them are going to be done by June. I actually think they're all going past June. So regardless of the war, I think the answer is no. It's going to continue on past June, most likely. So I hope that does address it the best I can. And we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 10 from Eastside Barbell. And thank you for the support as well. He said, Bear Nightmare Night.
Oh yeah, animals actually scare me. Like a lot of people are always gonna be like, oh, they're so cute. I just have read enough about them over the years, like the dangers that some animals pose, like moose. Like some people look at moose and they're like, oh, that's such a cute and majestic animal. I look at them and I see a killing machine. I'm like, that thing is just so dangerous. Like moose are some of the most dangerous animals here in this continent. Actually, let me pull it up. The most dangerous. Let's see, dangerous land.
You know, I'm gonna go camping out there eventually in that Wasatch Wilderness, but you know, I'm good though. I'm not really worried about sleeping at night with the animals because obviously, you know, we have weapons. So I mean, if some animal's really trying to really go for it, I mean, you know, self-defense.
Oh my God, you are not going to believe this.
They'll hoof you.
No, you know what the most dangerous land mammal in North America is, in the numbers of death that it causes per year?
Land manimal?
Yeah, land mammal. Like a land mammal.
Which one is it?
Take a wild guess. Just throw a dart at the board and see if you get it right.
Let's see here. Probably like those mountain goats.
White-tailed deer.
Now, how's that a threat? I've seen those things up close. Those things, how's that a threat?
A living torpedo to the windshield of cars, basically. They kill 400
Oh,
people
they're
a
talking about
year.
hitting cars?
Yeah, so a white-tailed deer are responsible for over 400 deaths in North America annually and 59,000 injuries every year.
Damn. Well, what's the face-to-face risk though? Like I get the deer thing, like hitting the deer with a car, but it's like if you're like face-to-face with a white-tailed deer, I mean, you could handle a white-tailed deer. I mean, those aren't that dangerous. They could try to hit you, but I mean, you could take care of those. But what's the dangerous face-to-face?
Well, that would be the brown bear, but it only causes 2 to 3 fatalities per year, so like non-existent figures. The next dangerous thing is moose, but apparently their death numbers are basically caused by people running into them as well, in collisions and whatnot. So moose are very dangerous. The bears are very dangerous, but white-tailed deer are the most dangerous if you're driving a car. So look out for them if you're in a car. Basically. But
Why is people talking about white-tailed deer are killing machines? Like, no, not face-to-face. No, I don't know what kind of deer y'all are dealing with. We grew up around white-tailed deer everywhere. I mean, they were in our backyard, and they'd be within like 5 or 10 feet back there eating the stuff off the ground. Like those things. I mean, I guess if you try to provoke it, I guess it could be dangerous. But I mean, I see a lot of people saying that. I mean, I've never had a problem with them personally.
I've never had a problem with them either. As a matter of fact, I got quite close to a lot of them when I was growing up, like within a few feet of them, and they never really were dangerous. I mean, if anything, they would run away, and that was it. I mean, they were never truly dangerous. But, I bet if you run into them with a car, that'd be pretty dangerous. I mean, geez, that's a several 100-pound object flying through your windshield, so, probably crush your head and kill you, so watch out for them if you're on the roadway. It's best not to hit them. Maybe that's why everyone, Matthew, these days are getting those Ford F-150s and like the super zooted trucks that are the size of M4 Shermans. So the deer can't go through the windshield because the truck is so high, the thing just goes under the truck.
Maybe it could be, possibly.
Maybe. Man, those Carolina squats are saving lives out there, man. They're stopping the deer from going through the windshield. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here is going to go to Chris Feilbach. And once again, thank you very much, Chris, for that support yet again. He said, Google just gave me 11 points for my review of the IRS building on stream. He said, I provided a true review, just not about myself.
Huh. And I got to thank you so much for the support, Chris. I got to say, that's very interesting to hear. But a big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a fly from Hednar. He said, if Xi is Winnie the Pooh, a.k.a. Xi the Pooh, then that makes Kim Juche Gangnam Style guy, and Putin is, I can't read the one about Putin, but Putin becomes a fellow, I don't think Putin has a mustache right now, but he might have one. But enforcer, what say you?
Kim Jong-un is like the weirdest leader of a country because he didn't even really live in North Korea most of his childhood. He actually lived in Switzerland with, I think, some of his distant family relatives. And what's even crazier about that is that his distant family relatives actually defected to the United States and just like abandoned him basically in South Korea. Well, not in South Korea, but in Switzerland, if I remember correctly at some point. really weird story there. But yeah, he grew up in like a Swiss boarding school or something like that. And then when Kim Jong-il started to kind of get a little bit ill, like his name suggests, they then brought him back from Switzerland immediately and to North Korea. And then they started to groom him to become the next leader of North Korea because they knew that Kim Jong-il probably wouldn't be around that much longer. So kind of
That's the same with Bashar al-Assad, by the way. That's sort of a similar thing with him.
yeah, it's really weird how they all live like their own lives. Like they say that one of like Putin's daughter is like uh what is it? It's like a DJ mixer or something like that in like Bern or something, I believe, or somewhere else. I don't know, but it's always weird how like these kids of dictators, they always go off and live in like Western countries. It's like for these like leaders to say that they hate the West so much, it's kind of odd that they always send their kids to go have a better life living in the West every single time. Kind of coincidental, don't y'all think?
Yeah, and also I think Khomeini's kids, I think they're in the West over here somewhere. Some of them might be in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, like, some of them are. Like, there's actually there's a load of people who are here in the United States, interesting enough, like children of dictators and whatnot. Really just wild when you think about that. But anyways,
Hey, they got the Russians down there in the bottom of Florida, like that whatever that family was in Russia, they got put out. They're down there at the bottom southern end of Florida.
the Romanovs.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean, like basically all those people got killed. I mean, they got executed. Like a lot of people always claim that they're like the descendants of the Romanovs, but the entire Romanov family line, I think, was killed in that basement up near St. Petersburg in like 1917.
I'm pretty sure there's like a few of them down there in southern Florida.
Let's see, are there any Romanovs left? Huh. That's news to me. Apparently, there's only 100 descendants left alive today. But the direct family, okay, so it was the immediate imperial family, they all were executed. That's the ones I was thinking about, because there's always, like, someone out there, from what I've heard, who's like, I'm Anastasia, and it's like, no, you're not. Anastasia died in that basement. And so that's what I was thinking of. But apparently there actually are, like, extended family in the Romanov dynasty that are still alive, and there's about 100 of them left. And you're saying that they're in Florida?
Yeah, don't ask me how I know that, but I think they're down there somewhere in southern Florida, I think.
In Broward County, where the mountains are made of trash?
Man, I don't know about the exact county or anything like that, but I think they're down there possibly in that area, maybe. St. Petersburg's a place in Russia and it's a place in Florida too.
That is actually true. Like that's kind of weird, honestly. It's kind of a little odd. But with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 20 from Crispy, and thank you very much, Crispy, for that $20 support. And once again, we do appreciate that. But Enforcer, what say you?
And we thank you incredibly for the support, Crispy, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Bretling. He said, can we use decommissioned ships remotely operated and run it through the minefields in the Strait and have air support pop all the anti-ship?
You could, but that might be a bit of waste of material. Maybe we might want to send that up to a scrappers and have it cut up for steel. Usually that's what they do with a lot of those sorts of ships. Probably the best thing to do would just be to militarily clear out anyone who could fire into the Strait, and then send the minesweepers in, or more so the ships equipped with the minesweeping drones, to start the process of clearing the Strait out. So a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running, and I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Kahua, and they said, what's happening in the Schofield Barracks, Hawaii? The Army just sent out a shelter in place order, but also shut doors and windows and turned off HVAC.
I wouldn't know, unfortunately. Incidents like that could come from a myriad of things. Like, a lot of people thought something crazy was going on at Peterson Space Force Base in Colorado Springs, and it turns out that it was just some disgruntled Space Force member that threatened that if his AC wasn't fixed, he was going to spin the block on the base, and that sent the whole thing into lockdown, and they had to go grab the loony. It could be anything.
I think they cleared it. I think there was some little situation going on. With, I think, possibly a misidentified airsoft rifle or something, I think, but I'm not totally sure.
Man, they had to shut down the AC for that. They're like, quick, make everyone sweating hot out here. Someone's got an airsoft gun. But, bases can go under lockdown for so many things. It's always hard to narrow down exactly why until they kind of give the public an idea as to why. But that whole thing with Peterson, was hilarious, folks, because I kind of got a little bit of a breakdown on it a little bit better off air, and I was dying laughing so hard at that. It was such a ridiculous scenario. Like, it was something that would be out of a comedy movie, the absurdity of what happened with that, and they shut the whole base down for it. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Ian Mitson yet again. He said, I got a Welsh Terrier. It's a Welsh dog, but way different looking than a Corgi.
A Welsh Terrier? I've never heard of one of those. Oh, wait, I have heard of one of those. It's one of these.
Oh, yeah, one of those dogs right there have like the long socks.
Man, that thing's got them legs that's thick. Right? Like that's got them thick legs. These things are pretty cool, though.
Those things right there, can you imagine? This dog is perfect for like cleaning. Like, you put those paws up on the counter and it was white. Like, that thing is perfect for that.
Man, it does a little left sweep and then a right sweep, and it's done. Like, it's perfectly clean. Really nice dog, though. I like the dog. It's a really pretty looking little dog. Look at it. Nice. I like that. And a big thanks to your support. And it is different looking than the Corgi, but it's very cute in its own way. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from DWRB. Once again, he said, how many days until the A10 goes brr, brr?
72 hours, probably, I would assume. So big thanks to you for support, and we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Waka Waka What, who said, I can see Russia, St. Petersburg from my window. LOL. And thanks for the coverage, guys. Pizza, coffee, and filters fund.
Hey, thank you so much for the pizza, coffee, and the filters. We all need filters. Always need filters. And that's really cool that you can see St. Petersburg out your window. You know, the one thing I know about this area is that back in, like, the 70s, some commercial ship lost propulsion or something like that, and it rammed into the Sunshine Skyway Bridge and collapsed it. If I remember correctly, something else happened here too, where like a Coast Guard cutter got yanked by an anchor on a merchant ship, and it got dragged underwater nearly, and it killed a couple of the Coast Guard sailors on board that cutter. If I remember right, or it was like a what the hell was it? It was like a buoy boat or something like that happened to down here in this bay as well. But those are the key things that I know about this location, or the maritime disasters that happen here in Tampa Bay. Have you ever seen that, Matthew, the Sunshine Skyway Bridge collapse?
No, I've never seen that. I've seen that bridge collapse down near Mobile when that thing collided with it, but I hadn't seen this one down here in Florida.
Let me see if I can pull it up for you. Yeah, there it is. Look at that.
Oh, that's a horror film right there. That's about somebody really had the car like right there on the edge like that.
Yeah, right there on the edge. Like, and I think some people were actually driving over the bridge. It was a low traffic business in the middle of the night, and then the bridge collapsed right under them, and their cars went plunging straight into the water, and basically everybody that happened to drowned to death.
All they had to do is, I think all you have to do is simply let the car submerge itself until it equalizes with the pressure, and then you can open the door.
Yeah,
was that disproven by Mythbusters, or was that something that was not true?
I think that was something that was proven true, but I think the equalization of the pressure took so long that you kind of like ran out of oxygen before time or something, or you had to be able to roll down the window with like a hand crank or something like that. Some along those lines. But these folks, man, I don't think they stood a chance, because the spans like literally gave way right under them, and they went shooting into the water like torpedoes, basically at that height. It's like a 150-foot fall from the top of the bridge here to the water. So it was quite the trip.
Yeah, that's a horror film right there.
Yeah, let me see. Here's another picture of it.
Oh, that's one of those death trap looking bridges.
Yeah, you know, one that wouldn't really be that survivable. But let me see what the actual number of the fatalities were, because I'm sure Wikipedia has an article on this somewhere. Yeah, here it is. The number of deaths was, let's see here. Well, oh, it doesn't actually this isn't the collapse, this is just the bridge. So they don't have a Wikipedia, and that's wild. It killed 35 people, actually, so it was quite a significant number of people.
That's tough.
Yeah, but, you know, kind of similar to that whole Annapolis bridge collapse. Well, not Annapolis, but Baltimore bridge collapse with the Francis Scott Key Bridge that was also hit by a ship that ran its propulsion shut down, and then it ran aground right on a pillar of the bridge and took it down. But anyways, with that, I hope that is a little bit of an interesting side note of history from down there near St. Petersburg. And a big thanks to you for support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a $20 support from Bobo Vasquez. And thank you very much, Bobo, for that $20 support. He said, for Matt, good night. And also, thank you, by the way, and also a good night to you, Bobo. And also, I thank you very much for that support, and also being a longtime channel legend. But Enforcer, what say you?
Thank you so much for the support, and a good night to you. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 5 from DWRB, and I already read that one off, but a huge shout to you again, DWRB, and you get 2 shout outs. We also have a 5 from Game Theory. He said, sorry to hear you guys face the crazy people. Donation for your AR fund. Oh, and also, don't worry, we're both loaded to the teeth. Like we're very well armed, to say the least. And also, we know we're trained in how to use those things, so we know how to use them safely. We know how to use them with respect, and we know how to use them with dignity. And we are trained on the shooting range. That's what they call it. I'm mixing up 2 different voices there. I don't know what I'm doing. But Enforcer, what say you?
Oh yeah, we're armed to the gills. like we're well armed to the gills. I'm pretty proficient, especially with rifles. I can hit about a 12-inch wide target at 600 yards with an AR-15 consistently. So we're pretty decent. I mean, that's not bad. So I'm pretty decent with them. And back in the day, back when we were getting the threats from the hot dog men people, which was probably like the most significant pressure we ever got on the channel from like a single threat campaign, basically. I mean, that was almost like, every other week it'd be like, how in the world do we make our security better, at least as far as we can? So we've taken care of that well in advance a long time ago, and had to get smart quick because of all that stuff that happened way back then. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to Hugh Crummond, and he puts in a 5-pound donation, and thank you very much for that 5-pounder. He said, from the Brits, as you ease me through the night shift at work at 6:15 a.m. And please, we're all behind you here, and we want to help, but a particular fella is being a bit of a problem. LSA.
And I thank you so much for the support, and we always have a huge amount of respect for our viewers from the United Kingdom, and really all of our allied countries. We respect and appreciate all of our allied countries here on this channel, and y'all are amazing folks over there. We're happy to help y'all out with y'all's night shift over there in the United Kingdom, and many of y'all, including yourself, are on the night shift in the UK right now, getting on until the early morning. And I hope wherever you may be within the United Kingdom that we were able to cross your threshold and tell you the news and let y'all know that y'all are a greater part of this Western sphere, and we greatly respect y'all as allies. And so a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have here a question from DWRB yet again. He said, the lions, the old flag of Iran, and tigers, the tank, and bears, oh my.
That's a pretty good one, actually. I like that one. A big thanks to your support, DWRB. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 4 from Frank Trujillo. He said, hit the like, LSA Army, and thank you, and Ukraine strong.
And Slava Ukraini, Ram Slava. And please do hit the like, folks. We would love to see it. We're always happy to see folks hitting that like button. We greatly appreciate it. And we cannot thank everyone enough. We've gotten up to 5.1 thousand likes tonight. That's a lot of likes. And so humongous thanks to you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Plazath, and thank you very much, Plazath, for that support as well. Excuse me. We do appreciate support, as always. And also a big shout out to Bob Avell, who put in a 2 as well. And thank you, Bob, also, just like Plazath, for throwing in that $2 support. And we also have a 2 from Investing Max. He said, much love from Canada. Great work, and I love the content.
And a big hello to Canada. I love Canada. Canada's a cool country, When you think of Canada, you think of Mounties, and you think of the great wilderness of British Columbia, and the beautiful Niagara Falls, which is also American as well, and wonderful cities like Montreal and Quebec and Vancouver and other cities. Like, great respect for y'all out there. And I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Folks, nothing ever beats, I have to say, big shout out to Canada, nothing ever beats that kind of beauty that you get in the Pacific Northwest, like that of British Columbia. Take a look.
Oh, yeah, there's that expensive train.
It's a good one. It's a really good one. But I mean, it really something out here. Canada is a really neat country. Really like them a whole lot. But a huge thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Ulf Hednar, and the joke was so good, HR wanted to hear it, and I can't sadly read it off, but we do appreciate $2 support, and thank you very much for that. We also have a 1 from Octo, and thank you, Octo, as well, for that 1, and we do appreciate that very, very much as well. And with that, folks, believe it or not, that is actually our last super chat to address. So we have time to get to some live chat questions proper. So once again, a huge shout out to everybody for that super chat support. But jumping right into our Morse code decoders, we have Paul, Kevin, Mason, Joni, Norm, Arabelle, her royal fluffiness, Kush, Kobe Tarek, Sire, and Brian. They said the Morse says, damn. That straight thingy isn't opening still. More 5D chess, anyone? LTLSA.
And it. And that's the sound of money. Y'all get the dead on the nail. That was the jackpot of the night. More 5D chess, anyone? Of course, of course. We have to have more 5D chess. It's working so well. Who in the world would ever want it to stop? If they see a
Pull up a 5D chessboard. Pull it up real quick. You know that one that Spock was playing in Star Trek, the actual 5D chessboard. Like, let me see a picture of that thing. I'm talking about the original series 5D chessboard that Spock was playing.
So there's a game actually called 5D chess, but what he was playing was 4D chess, which is like these weird things right here.
Yeah, so a bunch of that. I want to see the picture of Spock playing the chess right here. Let's see here, Spock 4D chess.
Yeah, this is goofy.
There he is. There it is, right there. Look at him right there. That's why I think of 4D chess. I think about this right here. That's why I think.
How the hell would you even play this stupid game? Like, is it like just a chessboard on different levels, or is it like what's the 4D about it? You know.
It's more like really 4 tiers of chess instead of 4 dimensions.
Man, isn't that stupid kid from that one episode where you just look at people weird and like they blow up or something?
And I want him to go away.
Yeah, that guy, it's him, it's him.
Where'd they go, Charlie? Where'd you put them? They were mean. I made them go away.
You know, when you look at these episodes, you can hear that, Captain. It's not logical. When I look at this one, more pulling power.
Man, I'll tell you that the Spock actor, he wasn't quite in the role like in the first few episodes. Like he was putting way too much of an emphasis on making it sound like he's shouting out orders from like a naval vessel or something. And then he kind of like actually went into it. The original Spock in those first episodes was anything but non-emotional. That dude was yelling and screaming and acting nutty.
Man, honestly, man, he was acting like he was like a damn first officer on a sailing ship. Like he was having to yell down the deck, "Run up the guns!" It's like, dude, it's a starship, dude. It's not a sailing ship. You don't have to do that. I'm not gonna lie, man. Those pilots were rough. Like rough. I'll tell you, folks. I think the one Star Trek that has aged the best is probably the Next Generation. Don't you agree, Matthew? Like with like the props to the set design, like the episodes. Like it hasn't really aged a whole lot, it seems.
Yeah, I think so. Those new Star Treks that have come out are just garbage. Like the new ones that have come out, like they've tried to overproduce the hell out of them. It's like if you have crap storylines and crap, like narration and stuff going on, it's like they're not going to be any good. Doesn't matter how much graphics you put into it.
Yeah, like I think nowadays, man, it's such a tragedy, really, folks, in most of the movie industry because they put like set design and costume design and all of that sort of stuff, like the eye candy stuff, ahead of the script writing. And it's like if you have bad writing, no amount of good props and good costumes and nice visual effects is going to cover up the fact the story's not good. And that's really a problem with a lot of modern like media is that there's just not any good writing that goes into it. And it's not political at all, folks. It's just that like even if it's not political, sometimes the writing just sucks. And it's like, you know, they need to have good fleshed out stuff. Like Squid Game.
Star Trek's always been political. Like even from the original series, it was political. Like that show did a lot of stuff like during the original series that at the time was considered a huge no-no for TV shows. Like it did a lot of stuff that was considered on the edge at that time.
Yeah, like one thing that was interesting, folks, because a lot of people look back at Star Trek and go, they weren't political back then. Was like, you know, well, the first generation Star Trek was actually the first television show in America that had an interracial kiss, which was basically just not done. It was literally never done until they did it. And there was a whole bunch of other things that they did as well that was really pushing the envelope for. I guess you could say what was socially acceptable for television back then. They had an interracial cast, and they had a whole bunch of episodes that would explore back then what would be kind of like pushing the boundary politically back then. Really, really interesting. But a lot of people look at it nowadays because a lot of that stuff has been settled and done and it's in the past, and they look at it as not really political because, I mean, duh, that's totally fine and whatnot. But back then it was really, pushing the envelope in a way. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And actually, also, we have a couple more super chats here. So what do we got, Matthew?
And our next one goes to Gregory, who puts in a 10. He said, good show, men, from Gatlinburg, Tennessee.
Hey, and a big shout out to Gatlinburg. Really, really neat place. And a big thanks to you for the support and help this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Game Theory, who said gas in Los Angeles is $6.27.
Shoo! God, man, that's expensive. I can't afford to live in California, sadly. California is a naturally beautiful state. Love California for that. Just so expensive, though, it's almost impossible to live there, sadly. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a 20 Australian from Ross Nibb. And thank you very much, Ross, for that 20 Australian. And we do appreciate that. He said, better late than never. And sorry to hear about your troubles with the hot dog people. By the way, what is the background of that situation? Or is it domestic politics? I've only heard the pillow guy, not the hot dog.
So to kind of like surmise that in a very short way, it was just basically like this bad seed person who is basically the best way to describe them as a character. They're an absolute loser, and the only way that they get ahead on YouTube is creating beef with other people and basically putting their lives in jeopardy in doing so to try and get a little bit of extra popularity, so that way they can run through those people in about 2 weeks and have to do it all over again just to try and stay slightly relevant to get a few thousand views. And they picked us as their target, and for about a year and a half, they had their entire community threatening to kill us, threatening to come do stuff to us, calling up our like schools wherever we were in college or law school, saying stuff to try and get us swatted in the middle of class, all that sort of stuff. It had nothing to do with domestic politics. And much like nowadays, because this is nothing new, nowadays people want to come in here and threaten us and stuff and say nasty stuff to us and say that we hate Trump and all that. Back then, with that guy, it was actually the opposite, because the Democrat was the president. We would criticize them. So clearly, according to them, we were hard right MAGA Nazis, because we would just criticize foreign policy actions that Biden made and be like, that doesn't really seem like it's doing that well. And so people would make threats to us in that vein, in the same way they do nowadays, because they say that we're TDS Trump hater people and all that, because we criticize everyone equally and we don't hold punches. So that's basically the run of the story. But with that, a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running, Ross Nibb. And it also appears that, according to Matthew, we have a new qualification of news. Possible news. Matthew, what do we have that is Schrodinger's news right now?
Okay, so the reason I'm saying possible news is because typically speaking, we don't generally monitor broadcasts, between the military, because most of it's encrypted. But we are seeing something that could be unusual, possibly. And the only reason, I will admit, the only reason I'm actually entertaining this idea is because OSINT Defender apparently finds it to be unusual. And generally, OSINT Defender is usually on point with pretty much everything. So I'm willing to give this one a look. But here's why I'm skeptical, though. A lot of these prepper channels out there, which are like loony people and stuff like that, they'll make these titles and they'll say stuff like, oh, the nuclear bombers are flying, and they'll like play like a broadcast or something like this. But I will say, OSINT Defender's not a loony. He's usually pretty on point. So it looks like, according to the claim here, there's apparently unusual messages that are being broadcast by the E-6B Doomsday planes. And there appears to be a video to back that up as well, where you can hear unusual broadcasts going out. So not totally sure how to interpret this. I don't really truly know what to interpret these messages as, but I guess the best way to put it is it's something to watch. But if you want to listen to it, you can, if you can make anything out of it.
Let's take a listen.
CONVENED. This is doorbell. Doorbell. Break. Message of 12 groups follows. Uniform. Kilo. Oscar. Yankee. India. Alpha. Victor. Juliet. Lima. India. Delta. Charlie. November. Zulu. Kilo. Uniform. Tango. India. Yankee. Golf. India. Bravo. Zulu. Whiskey. India, Papa.
Could
Okay,
they possibly be doing just testing like the connection or the radio like strength or something? I mean, what could that even possibly be? Because I wouldn't even have a clue.
well, it was a pretty significant sequence, and then they had the verification at the end. It's probably something important for someone somewhere. But what it would be, I wouldn't know because of course, obviously, folks, we don't have Air Force or Navy or anyone else. We don't have Department of Defense encryption capabilities or de-encryption capabilities. So I wouldn't know what it means. I mean, it was a fairly long sequence, and that is something that is a little interesting there. But it could be anything, folks. It could be something like, I mean, it could literally be anything. I can't even begin to list off all of the things that it could be. So, if you hear anyone going, oh, that's it, the nuclear bombers are flying, we're all going to die. Like, they don't know that. How the hell would they know that? Nobody would know what that is. That's the point of the encrypted message. And it was also, by the way, if y'all are wondering why they were like saying whiskey, India, Papa, that's the phonetic alphabet in its native form. That's how the letters are pronounced. So it was a sequence of letters. It was literally just a straight jumble of them. And that jumble is in a binder somewhere, most likely on board that aircraft or wherever that message was being transmitted. And then they use the encryption key at the end to be able to get the exact message and what it's supposed to be. So it's a pre-made message, and they just send that to let the people know, whoever have the binder somewhere, that's exactly what this means and what's going on. So I don't know what they're saying, but they've said something to someone that must be significant.
Yeah, well, they also, by the way, if anybody's wondering what this is, by the way, the Doomsday plane, which what did they say in the article? They said it was the E-6B. Is that what they said?
Yeah, I believe those are operated by the Navy, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think that's the Navy variant of that aircraft. Let me pull out to make sure, though, before I say that. Let's see here. Yeah, that appears to be the Navy one, E-6 Mercury. So it basically what it is, I'll just read it off instead of trying to like just make it up as I go. It says here an airborne command post and communications relay, and it's mainly designed to keep communications and convey instructions to fleet ballistic missile submarines, known as the TACAMO, which means take charge and move out. So that's why it's called a doomsday plane. If something happens where there's no way to communicate domestically in the United States, this Mercury aircraft will serve as the relay, which is why it's called a doomsday aircraft. So it is notable. It's broadcasting something, but I couldn't even begin to tell you what it means.
I mean, it could just be something like, we're on station awaiting orders. That could be what it is as well. I mean, like, everything that comes from the Doomsday plane, folks, isn't going to be, that's the sequence for a nuke to go off. There is also other ones that they could give that are just general standard orders, or standard answers, like we are in position and awaiting further command. And that could be that broadcast. It could be something incredibly mundane, or it might be something pretty wild. But, also someone said, you can decrypt it really easy. Well, if
No.
you, a random Joe, could decrypt it, then that whole point of doing that means nothing, because that means that the Chinese and the Russians will be able to do it even faster than you in seconds. So what would be the point of doing that? At that point, they might as well just say, hey, we're calling up the USS Ohio. We want you to launch the nukes. Like, if the encryption is that easy to decrypt, there's no point in it even.
Yeah, there's no point in it. And also, by the way, just to make this clear, like Ocean Defender wasn't trying to say that he knew what it meant either. He just said it was unusual. That's all he said. And that's all we can really say too. Is it sounds unusual? I guess. To be honest with you, like I'm not really familiar with what these radio communications even mean most of the time. So I'm having to rely on what Ocean Defender is saying about it because I'm not even sure if it's unusual, to be perfectly honest.
I mean, it sounds like a very long sequence, and I would suppose that's probably what makes it unusual. But outside of that, folks, we wouldn't have a clue. Neither does OSINT Defender and NEAT Intel. Anyone have a clue what it actually means, and anyone who would tell you that in the public right now is lying to you, just to put that out there. They have to say that though, because like a lot of people will want to get the answer, and then a lot of people will end up going to the prepper channels. Never listen to the prepper channels. Like, that's a group that I'm totally fine with, like, just being honest about. They don't know what the hell is going on, and they claim that everyone's getting nuked and dying tonight every night. So don't ever go and listen to them for anything, because they're going to tell you that you're going to be dead tonight every day. So with that, I hope that addresses that the best I can, at least from what we know. And with that, it is time for us to get on back into the questions.
And this one goes to Chris Feilbach, who puts in another 20. And thank you very much, Chris, for that support. He said, Neat Intel is the only not loony EAM person. They consistently predict annual exercises and such accuracy. And also, by the way, I want to make it clear, I wasn't trying to make a statement about that fella either.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
not
me
really
either.
familiar with his Twitter page, to be perfectly honest, but I don't know like anything about them. It appeared to me they were simply reposting a radio feed that they had heard. So no offense, they're not trying to take jabs at OSINT Defender or Neat Intel. But Enforcer, what say you?
Yeah, I would have to say, not taking any jabs at Neat Intel or OSINT Defender. Neither one of them said this is exactly what this is. They just said it's unusual, and I'd agree. It's certainly unusual and interesting. But outside of that, I would have to look into Neat Intel a little bit more. I haven't really heard about them much, and maybe they got some interesting stuff that we would be able to hear about and learn about, and maybe even talk about on air sometimes. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a five from Live Animal who said, I wager that Iranian diplomats are telling ships to pass by covertly, and the IRGC is fighting back, hence the confusion about the ships passing by.
Um, Maybe. I mean, that might be possible. I have a feeling that they're all acting in concert, and that might have been a deliberate action by the Iranians to show they still clearly control the situation at their own whim. But a big thanks to you for support, and with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a five from DWRB. He said, Star Wars over Star Trek.
You know, I mean, honestly, like, Star Wars is, like, more action-packed, and I think it's, you know, more interesting in that degree. But Star Trek is a nice watch if you're, like, wanting to have a bit of a deeper watch, you know, like something that might explore some sort of an idea philosophically or something. It's like, oh, that's really interesting, and they have a neat way of exploring it through the setting that they're in. But Star Wars is also really good, too. Honestly, I'm kind of a fan of both. I find them both enjoyable to watch for their own different reasons. But a big thanks to you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a five from Jonathan Sherwood. He said, could it be a personnel movement, like the 82nd finally moving over there?
Yeah, it could be. We do know that at least one brigade combat team of the 82nd has been sent over already. It could be that one that's still on the way over, or it could be new parts of the 82nd Airborne Division, the other BCTs that are now moving over with them as well. So I hope that is addressed the best I can. A big thanks to you once again for support. And with that, folks, we are right back into the live chat. So what do we got, Matthew?
And our first one goes to TS Actual. He said, which Gulf countries operate the AH-64s?
Let's see here. Gulf countries that operate them. Well, Saudi Arabia operates some. I don't think the UAE does. I think they operate Tigers. Not really sure about Qatar or Bahrain. I think Kuwait has some Apaches, and I don't think Iraq has any. So, that would be my best guesses. I wouldn't be able to say that with any exactness, but I know that Saudi Arabia definitely has them because Saudi Arabia is a significant purchaser of modern U.S. equipment. Let's see. Saudi AH-64. Let me see here. Let me take a look. Let's see. Yeah, it looks like Kuwait does have some, if I'm getting the flag correct there. So hang on, folks. I'm trying to see if I can find a picture of a Saudi. Yeah, here we go. Here's a Saudi Apache right there. You can actually see the Saudi flag on the tail. So they do have them. And then let's see here. Let's see here. Kuwait. Pretty sure they have some. And they do. That's a Kuwaiti Apache. And then if I took another pot shot, I guess that Qatar might have them. Pretty sure they do. And they do, actually. And Bahrain, actually, I like that paint job. That's actually pretty good on an Apache. What about Bahrain? Okay, they don't have one. And then let me just check Emirati. They don't have any either. So it's basically just Kuwait, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia. They're the ones with the Apaches. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a question from AF Kaplan. He said, is there a danger that Iran may booby trap ships that are heading toward the area of the U.S. blockade?
They could try, but I think the risk of that would be somewhat low. I think they're more so overtly attacking them because they're generally trying to maximize the economic damage, and while that might be able to conduct some military damage, it wouldn't really be achieving their primary goal of ensuring that no ships leave whatsoever and even have a false sense of safety, even if they didn't. So I hope that does address that the best I can, and with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a question from David Tablet. He said, is it possible that the IRGC is not listening to the current leader of Iran because, there's claims out there from the U.S. intelligence that he could be a little flamboyant because it would sort of clash with the ideology in Iran?
He's a little flamboyant, Kathleen. He's a singing man.
It's a fair point. In America, it's not a big deal in America. But in Iran, that's a whole different thing. If someone is flamboyant in Iran, that can get you in some legal trouble inside of that country. In fact, it could do worse than that inside of Iran. So, that might be part of it.
I'd say it probably wouldn't have that much of an impact because, everybody who's up there at the top of the leadership of a country is usually pretty messed up, kind of, in those sorts of ways across the world. Like, for example, I'm not going to say it on, you see what I'm looking at right here?
Yeah.
And nothing really changed on, so, I don't know, I would say, maybe not. But with that, we're on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Yajoy, who said, doesn't that make it more likely that Russia will use nuclear weapons? And if they're bankrupt and won't be able to sustain the war, they might use it as a last resort.
Let's see. I would say that I don't think it'll be increasing the risk of them using a nuclear weapon, but it certainly will be increasing the risk of them conducting a conventional war with NATO while they still have the chance, and then threatening nuclear weapons in that conflict. I think it's certainly increasing that risk, but just overt, direct nuclear usage without it being justifiable under their nuclear doctrine would still be highly unlikely. So I hope that is addressed to the best I can, and we actually have another super chat to address before we get to the final one of the night.
And this one goes to Kanga, who put in a 75 Polish monies, and we do appreciate that. I don't know the name of your currency, though. He said, LSA, and great show, guys, and keep it going.
And thank you so much for the support, Kanga, and I gotta say, thank you once again for helping this channel to keep it running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the last person to put in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is AF Kaplan once again. He said, after Iran's attack on the Indian vessel, has there been any statement about the incident from India's government?
We haven't heard of any statement from India's government yet. It appears that they've been largely silent on that so far and haven't made comment, but I'm sure that we'll probably see that the Republic of India does. The current Modi government in India is fairly, actually is somewhat hyper-nationalist, as some people describe it, and generally view any sort of acts of aggression against the Republic of India as quite hostile, and they generally respond to them as though they are purely hostile actions. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my current predictions, based off of how the Modi government operates, but we'll have to wait and see if that ends up being the case. Nevertheless, that is the end of our stream for the night. And I got to thank you all so much once again for watching. We are entirely honored and greatly pleasured to know that many of y'all have been here and watching the stream tonight. We had 23,000 people here at the peak, and 190,000 people have watched this stream over the course of about 3 hours and 45 minutes. I thank you all so much once again for watching, and we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news from around the world, and to also run our Sunday night fundraiser. And if there is enough news in the middle of the day to make a short war video, which hopefully there will be, because we're trying to keep up on that schedule as best we can, Enforcer Matt will be the one making that short war video. And so with that,
it's my turn. It's my turn.
Hey, it's his turn. It's his turn. And also, by the way, a huge thanks to everyone who watched the short war video over the course of the day. I thank you all so much. I made that one, and it really did well, and I was really happy to see it. So with that, we will see you all then. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe. Slava Ukraini, Ram Slava, long live the Lead Spring Army, and long live the Republic.
And with that, folks, we will see you all tomorrow. And a huge shout to the 190,000 plus people that were here by the end of the stream. And we look forward to seeing you all on the short war video tomorrow. If there is enough news to cover midday, which there probably will be, would be my guess. And also definitely tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern for the Sunday night fundraiser stream, as always. And be sure to join us for that. But in the meantime, though, a huge shout out to all of you once again. And of course, Slava Ukraine, Heroam Slava, get some rest, and good night.
Stop! на нещастя.